Welcome to the breathtaking and majestic realm known as the Celestial Garden. 24-year-old Kazami Jinta sits alone in a dark void, reeling from the realization that a fatal accident just ended his life. Suddenly, a stunning blonde beauty wearing a royal crown appears, flipping through his personal records. Jinta looks up in total shock, completely dazed by the gorgeous girl standing right in front of him. As the room transforms into a massive, endless office, Jinta desperately asks who she is. With a radiant smile, she introduces herself as the one and only goddess Lifa. She reveals her job at the Division of the Dead, where she holds the power to decide every soul's final fate. A quirky animation plays out, showing a poor soul being tossed into hell for reincarnation. Jinta stares at his own file, finally starting to wrap his head around this insane new reality. His records confirm he was taken out by a truck, and even cruelly mock him for never having a girlfriend. Lifa shoots him a look of practiced pity and delivers the cold, hard truth. He's dead. Genital hangs his head as the crushing weight of his own death fills the room with a suffocating silence. Out of nowhere, he leaps to his feet and lets out a massive, earth-shaking roar of absolute joy. Completely blindsided, Lifa can barely stammer out a response as her crown wobbles on her head. She snaps back to reality and demands to know why he's striking a ridiculous victory pose. He screams with excitement that he's finally escaped his soul-crushing job and his nightmare of a boss. He offers a bashful apology for the noise while the goddess stares him down with pure irritation. Li Fa breaks the news that his ticket to the afterlife has already been punched. Jinta's mind drifts to a serene paradise filled with endless fields of blooming flowers. He cuts her off mid-sentence, shouting that he wants to be reborn into a brand new world instead. Liafa shoots him a confused look, demanding to know what he could possibly accomplish in a place like that. He suddenly grips her shoulders with fire in his eyes, declaring that his destiny is already set in stone. We dive into his wild imagination, where he's surrounded by a massive harem of stunning women. Snapping back to reality, he claims that's just the beginning, while Lifa watches him with pure disgust. His ego explodes as he imagines himself drowning in fame, riches, and the roar of a worshipping crowd. He thinks back to his past life. A life full of failure and missed opportunities that he refuses to repeat. Fueled by a new burning passion, he vows to seize every single thing he's ever wanted. A tiny snicker escapes Lifa before she completely loses it, bursting into uncontrollable laughter. She ridicules his grand dreams, mocking him for thinking he could ever pull off something so insane. Wiping tears of joy from her eyes, she tells him straight up, "There is absolutely no way that's happening." She laughs in his face, mocking him by saying a nobody like him would probably just be reborn as a piece of tissue. Janta's face twists with pure humiliation as she coldly orders him to just give up and go to heaven. With a wicked smile, she blasts him with dark energy, pinning him against a pillar without breaking a sweat. He shatters the pillar and explodes in rage, screaming at her for mocking his ultimate dream. The surrounding souls jump in terror, desperately begging him to shut up and keep it down. He lunges forward and grabs her, demanding her help, but she coldly shuts him down, calling it impossible. Driven to the edge, he makes a wild threat to grope her if she doesn't start listening right now. Her divine mask completely shatters, and she starts frantically pleading with him to just wait a second. She panics, explaining that forcing his reincarnation would trigger a total cosmic catastrophe. He doesn't give a damn about the consequences, shouting that he'll do whatever it takes to get his way. His eyes lock onto a massive red button on her console, and he demands she activate it right now. He lunges toward her, snarling that he's going to take exactly what he came for. Suddenly, he freezes in total confusion and blurts out, "Wait, what happened to your chest?" He stares down at her chest, only to find it's as flat as a board. He yells in disbelief, asking if they've gone missing, while she just stands there, paralyzed with shock. Lifa's face twists into a mask of absolute pure horror. Jean Tom mutters to himself, frantically wondering where they could have possibly gone. A vision of a much more curvaceous goddess flashes through his mind. He starts frantically patting her down, accusing her of hiding them somewhere. She shakes with pure fury, screaming that they aren't so small that he can't find them. She shrieks that they're definitely not small while he desperately tears the place apart. During the wild scuffle, his hand crashes right onto the big red button. Both of them go dead silent as the weight of their massive screw-up hits them. Suddenly, a blinding, intricate magic circle explodes into life right under their feet. A surge of raw power yanks them off the ground, leaving them dangling in midair. Trapped in the swirling vortex, their faces are frozen in absolute terror. A status window pops up, revealing Jean Taz's totally mediocre stats for the world to see. The screen scrolls down with the heavy metallic clank of grinding gears. Liafa's jaw drops in horror when she sees his final stat, a luck score that's completely off the charts. The console blares a new alert, Reincarnation initiated as they float helplessly in the heart of the blinding light. Jinta's brand new life kicks off with a bang as his insane luck stat flashes for all to see. The camera zooms in to reveal a number that shouldn't even exist. His luck is a staggering 99 million. Under a vast, shimmering sky, their epic adventure in this strange new world finally begins. Standing in the middle of a massive meadow, Jinta finally introduces himself to his new companion. The goddess flashes a playful yet defeated smile, telling him to just call her Lifa. Jinta stares at her, desperately trying to remember what she was rambling about before. Lifa stands tall, her golden hair dancing wildly in the wind. She boldly claims he's the luckiest guy alive to have her around, but he just asks why. She wonders if it's because she's such a total babe, but that's definitely not it. She turns bright red and starts panicking, screaming that she didn't mean it like that. She beams with pride, declaring herself the ultimate expert on this mysterious world. She brags about knowing everything, from the layout of the land to the deadliest monsters lurking in the shadows. Pointing straight toward the horizon, she confidently claims the town of Hoenn lies just ahead. She strikes a dramatic pose and tells him to go ahead. Ask his goddess anything his heart desires. Suddenly, Jintar remembers that strange little item he scavenged earlier. He gives her a playful smirk, telling the beautiful goddess, Li Fa-chan, that he's got a little gift for her. He pulls out a shimmering, glittering crystal and asks if she can identify it. At first glance, she shrugs it off as just another common magic crystal dropped by some random monster. But as she leans in, she realizes this crystal's quality is absolutely off the charts. Her jaw hits the floor as she realizes she's staring at a legendary mithril-grade treasure. He claims he just snatched it off some random goblin, leaving her absolutely floored by his insane luck. When he asks if mithril is actually a big deal, she confirms that it's incredibly hard to find. A tiny chibi-leafa pops up to explain that this is the second rarest magic crystal in existence. She crunches the numbers and realizes this treasure is worth at least a staggering 100,000 rin. With a playful wink, she compares the payout to a massive payday and cheers for his unbelievable fortune. She tells him it's time to party, but his mind is already drifting towards something much deeper. She points out that most adventurers would grind in deadly dungeons for months just to see a glimpse of this loot. He realizes that 100,000 isn't just pocket change you stumble across every day. He flashes a warm smile and tells Lifa that now she'll finally have a warm bed instead of sleeping in the dirt. Lifa is completely speechless, touched by the fact that he was thinking of her comfort this whole time. She tentatively asks if this is really okay, and he gives her a rock-solid yes. He insists he still owes her a massive apology and vows to look after her. Her face explodes into a dazzling smile as she showers him with gratitude. Janta is completely thrown off, totally flustered by her sudden shift in mood. Lifa starts pushing him to move faster, desperate to reach the town before sunset. As they hike, she offers to give him a crash course on mastering the item box. Finally, they stand before the towering, ironclad gates of a massive walled city. Lifa excitedly shouts that they've reached their first big milestone, the town of Hoenn. With a dramatic flourish, she proudly announces their arrival at the town of Hoenn. A stunning fantasy town reveals itself, nestled perfectly against the backdrop of a jagged mountain range. Janita's drinks in the exotic vibes while Lifon remarks on the bustling energy. They dive into a local merchant's shop to finally get down to business. A bell rings overhead as they push through the door and enter the shop. Genitod is over the moon, fanning a fat stack of cash after selling off that crystal. It's a total of 100,000 RIN, hitting the exact mark Li Fa predicted. La Femme notes they've got nothing left to trade, but Jean Tachikoli suggests selling her own underwear. Jinta tries to find an inn, but a pissed-off Lifon suddenly grabs his arm. She screams at him to knock it off, absolutely hating his pathetic joke. Right then, a man gets tossed into the street, crying like a baby over his lost fortune. Genital wonders what the hell is going on, and Lifon reveals this is a legendary item gacha haul. She breaks it down for a clueless Jinta. This place is nothing but a high-stakes gambling den. You bet your magic crystals for a shot at scoring some seriously rare loot. Jinta quickly realizes that in this game, skill means nothing and luck is everything. Lifa confesses that the top-tier rewards, like legendary weapons, are absolutely insane. She warns him that most of the time, you're just walking away with total trash. When Jinta asks if anyone actually hits the jackpot, Lifa tells him the odds are practically zero. She explains that you'd need a god-level amount of luck just to stand a chance. A wicked smirk spreads across Jinta's face as a wild idea takes root in his mind. He grins, boldly declaring that if luck is the only requirement, he's already won. He flings the doors open and storms into the hall, ready to put his fate to the ultimate test. Leafoff scrambles after him, desperately asking if he's actually going through with this. Genitao discovers a single pull costs a massive 10,000 rin, and Leafa is absolutely losing it. LaFile warns him that this gacha is feared worldwide for its soul-sucking, addictive nature. Genitalk stays cool as ice, telling her to just relax and leave the rest to him. Leafa is baffled, demanding to know how he can be so insanely confident in his luck. He spins around with a killer smile, claiming his victory is guaranteed because she's right there with him. A blushing, flustered Leafa is left totally stunned as Jinta steps up to the counter. He demands just one single attempt, even though the clerk tries to push a bulk discount on him. Out of nowhere, a drunk patron slaps an arm around Jinta to offer some tipsy wisdom. The man roars with laughter, mocking him because one try is useless and he'll need dozens more to stand a chance. Leafuk is trembling as she tugs on Jean Taz's sleeve, desperate for him to stop. The maid attendant stands poised behind the counter, waiting for his final call. Genital looks the man dead in the eye and declares that one single try is all he needs. The maid offers a polite smile as she accepts his request for one solitary pull. The patron scoffs, waving Jean Tao forward to go ahead and learn a painful lesson. Leafuk squeezes her fists tight, praying to the gods that his luck holds out. Genitag grips the gacha lever with everything he's got, ready to challenge fate itself. With a fierce shout, he cranks the handle and watches as a single capsule drops. His status screen flashes before his eyes, highlighting that mind-blowing 99,999 luck stat. He holds the capsule tight, hoping his impossible power isn't just some massive glitch. The entire crowd freezes as a blinding flash of light explodes from the prize. The maid's jaw hits the floor when she realizes this isn't just some lucky break. She tosses confetti everywhere, shrieking at the top of her lungs that he's hit the jackpot. Jinta lets out a massive victory cry, thrusting the radiant treasure toward the heavens. That jerk who was talking trash, he's left stuttering like a complete idiot. Leafa is absolutely floored. He actually snagged the rarest loot on his very first try. Jinta smirks at the speechless crowd, reminding every single one of them that he called it. The excited maid showers him with praise as she reveals the true power of the Rainbow Stone. Behold the ultimate prize, the legendary demon flame sword, Levitine. An adorable chibi Jinta pops up to celebrate him finally claiming this god-tier blade. Inside the local tavern, whispers of that legendary wind are spreading like a wildfire. Even the waitresses are buzzing with gossip about the mythical sword pulled from the gacha hall. One bitter patron slams his drink, cursing the fact he's wasted years trying to win that exact blade. A nearby adventurer realizes that with a weapon like that, even the mighty behemoth would stand no chance. As they feast on camel meat for dinner, Leafa reflects on the absolutely insane events of the day. The sword status screen flickers to life, revealing a god-tier SSSR rank and astronomical stat boosts. Janetta is completely floored, stammering to ask if SSSR is truly the peak of all rarities. Leafa reveals the blade is worth billions, a price tag that leaves Gintas absolutely speechless. Noticing his hesitation, she asks if he really plans on keeping such a legendary treasure for himself. She drops a bombshell. This is the legendary blade used by the hero who slaughtered the demon lord. Between mouthfuls, she casually scoffs that a total amateur like him could never handle a weapon like that. Jean Tao just takes another bite, completely unfazed by her stinging doubt. He decides to put the blade to the test later tonight before he makes his final choice. Leafa grumbles that a prize this big is just a massive target for every thief and thug in town. Just then, the waitress arrives at their table with a sweet surprise in hand. She presents them with 2 bowls of Pango ice, catching Leafa completely off guard. Leafa's eyes sparkle with pure, unadulterated joy the moment she sees her favorite treat. Jinta asks if she's enjoying it, and she blissfully confirms that she absolutely loves it. Outside, a sharp crescent moon cuts through the darkness of the midnight sky. Back in their room, a stuffed and satisfied Leafa collapses onto her bed in total exhaustion. Janta can't help but admit that their dinner feast was absolutely incredible. But even after that meal, the celestial realm remains eerily silent. He watches Leafa tossing and turning, realizing she's left her guard completely down. Suddenly, Leafa shifts and looks John Tao in the eye, demanding to know his next move. Jintak's mind is set. He's going to become an adventurer to conquer this brand new world. He knows the path is crawling with death, but he's more than ready to face the fire. With a smirk, he declares that true greatness is always worth the ultimate gamble. Li Fa gazes at him, her cold stare melting away as she sees the fire in his eyes. She lets out a soft sigh and tightens her fist, finally making her choice. She bolts upright and swears an oath to shield him from every nightmare this world throws their way. She vows to train him herself, making sure he actually survives this dangerous new world. She leaps onto the bed, boldly claiming she's a maxed-out goddess at level 999. Jeantal gives her a deadpan stare, clearly not believing a single word of her hype. But then, her real status screen flashes, revealing she's a measly level 1. Basically a common goblin. She starts panicking to defend herself, but she gets so flustered that she loses her balance. She tumbles right off the bed and slams into a nearby table with a deafening crash. Now she's just a dazed heap on the floor with her crown knocked completely sideways. She clutches her head and groans, stunned that a little fall could cause so much damage. As Jeantal helps her up, she can't understand why she's suddenly feeling so much pain. He guesses that her weakened state is just another massive bug in their reincarnation process. Utterly humiliated, Leafa snaps that she's had enough and buries herself under the covers. With sleep nowhere in sight, Jean Todd decides to slip out of the room to clear his head. He stops by the front desk to let the innkeeper know he's just heading out for a quick stroll. He confesses to himself that there's just no way he can relax with a girl in his room. He gives the innkeeper his word that he'll be back before they even know it. He steps out of the inn and into the eerie, moonlit silence of the Hoenn streets. He realizes this is the ultimate chance to finally test the power of his new demon sword. He spots a lone guard fast asleep on duty, making his secret mission a whole lot easier. Even in his basic everyday clothes, Jinta looks a little bit hesitant about what's coming next. The scene cuts to the obsidian night sky, dominated by a razor-thin crescent moon. He stands alone in the center of a quiet clearing, realizing he's finally found the perfect spot. With a sharp command, he summons his item box as a terrifying vortex of dark energy erupts before him. He reaches deep into the swirling portal, his fingers locking tightly around the hilt. A smirk plays on Janita's lips as he realizes just how insanely overpowered his item box truly is. He unsheathes the massive, ornate blade of Levitine, marveling at its legendary and intricate design. Even with Li Fa's dire warnings ringing in his ears, he's certain he can bend this weapon to his will. He remembers that this legendary blade is infused with some seriously devastating magic skills. It's time for a test run, so he prepares to unleash the first skill, Dark Flame. He scans the horizon and locks his eyes on a massive, distant boulder as his target. He white-knuckles the hilt, even though he's totally winging it and has no clue what he's doing. Out of nowhere, a blinding, intricate magic circle blazes beneath his feet. Dark energy surges through the blade as he readies a devastating strike. His jaw drops in pure disbelief at the overwhelming power coursing through him. A massive wave of pitch-black flames explodes from the sword. The sheer recoil slams him into the dirt, leaving him completely stunned. He can't believe such a world-shaking move was this effortless to pull off. Gasping for air, he stares at his palm, realizing this insane power is actually his. A titan-sized serpent crawls from the smoking crater, letting out one last agonizing scream. Genital stands frozen in shock as the beast crawls out from the wreckage. The giant monster finally hits the deck, dead in the middle of the charred wasteland. He stares in disbelief, realizing he just pulled off an insane one-hit kill. A wave of shock hits him as he realizes that definitely wasn't just a rock. His status screen flashes, revealing the beast was a massive level 60 plains behemoth. He's absolutely floored. He just one-shotted the legendary Lord of the Plains. Something sparkles in the smoldering ruins, catching his attention immediately. He reaches into the ashes and pulls out a rare ghost stone and a giant, pristine horn. Glancing up at the moon, he knows this horn is going to fetch a fortune. Genitop slips back to the inn, finally stepping into the safety of the warm light. Bone-deep exhaustion washes over him as he realizes his mana is completely drained. He nudges the door open, desperate to finally collapse into a deep sleep. Leafa corners him instantly, demanding to know where on earth he's been hiding. He looks down and notices the glistening trails of tears still staining her cheeks. She explodes in anger, screaming at him for vanishing without a single word. She turns her back on him in a huff, while he cluelessly asks what's wrong. Her icy exterior finally melts as she begins to voice her deepest insecurities. She confesses her soul-crushing fear that he'd grown bored and abandoned her forever. Jinta goes dead silent, his expression turning grave as he realizes how much she's hurting. He lets out a soft chuckle, teasing her for crying over something so silly. He ruffles her hair and calls her a total crybaby, promising he's never leaving her side. Her face turns bright red as she frantically denies the tears and tells him to knock it off. He swears right then and there that he'll never leave her side without telling her first. He slowly guides her back toward the bed, catching her completely off guard. He loses his footing for a split second, pulling her close as they stumble through the shadows. Suddenly, they're face to face, and the air between them practically crackles with tension. Nearby, Liafa's delicate crown sits quietly under the soft glow of a flickering lantern. Caught up in the rush of emotion, he leans in and presses his lips against hers. Liafa's eyes snap wide open, her mind racing with pure, unadulterated shock. She recoils in a daze, her face turning bright red as she frantically covers her mouth. She fumbles over her words, desperately crying out that this wasn't supposed to happen. The sheer intensity of the moment is just too much for her heart to handle. She blacks out instantly, crashing onto the mattress in a total stupor. Jantai stands there frozen and flustered, his heart hammering against his ribs like a drum. He realizes he's hit his limit and decides to just sleep it off until morning. He carefully pulls the blankets over the sleeping goddess, making sure she's tucked in tight. Slumping onto his own bed, he tries to wrap his head around this absolute whirlwind of a night. A sudden flashback reveals Liafa's deepest secret. She's terrified that Jinta will abandon her. He realizes how soul-crushing it must be to be reborn in a new world without any of your old powers. Dawn finally breaks, casting a golden glow over the peaceful streets of Hoenn. Liafa stumbles awake, her head spinning with only a blurry, half-forgotten memory of that kiss. Genitag flashes a bright smile and gives her a casual good morning like nothing even happened. A nagging feeling tugs at her soul, but the memory remains a frustrating, hazy blur. She demands to know what went down, but he quickly deflects, telling her to go wash her face. Soon after, the two settle in for a quiet, intimate breakfast at their small table. Suddenly, Liafa beams with a bright smile and announces she's officially joining Jinta's side. Jinta is caught off guard, but she makes it clear. She's becoming an adventurer to fight right beside him. She refuses to be a useless burden while she waits for her return to the celestial realm. He tries to tell her he doesn't mind, but she stubbornly insists that she absolutely does. With hope in her eyes, she asks if he'll truly let her join him on his wild adventures. He gives her a warm smile, confessing that he's the one who needs her incredible knowledge. He reaches out his hand, ready to finally seal the deal on their legendary new partnership. He grasps her small hand in his, offering a firm grip that screams reliability. They seal the pact with a handshake and a grin, officially teaming up for the long haul. But then, Liafa freezes, demanding to know if he really managed to slay that behemoth. She's in total shock, screaming about how those monsters are basically walking nightmares. She mentions the Crescenites, a legendary order of the world's most elite warriors. Even those high-level knights were completely powerless against that savage beast. To settle the debate, he whips out the massive horn he carved right off the creature. Liafa's jaw hits the floor as she stares at the trophy, unable to believe her own eyes. He acts like it was no big deal, casually mentioning he just used a little magic from his sword. A sudden flashback reveals the terrifying, world-shaking power of his dark flame strike. Liafa is completely baffled, knowing those horns should never come off that easily. They sprint over to a local merchant to trade those monster trophies for cold, hard cash. The shopkeeper's jaw hits the floor as she gasps, "Wait, you took down the behemoth Chan all by yourself?" She can barely believe her eyes, but she confirms the horn is 100% authentic and fresh from the beast. She insists that he needs to get to the Adventurers Guild and report this legendary kill right now. Liafa realizes this is it. He's finally cleared the subjugation quest and that massive reward is his. The merchant gleefully hands him an official certificate to prove his incredible victory. She slides the scroll over, telling him this is exactly what he needs to claim his prize. Suddenly, Liafa notices he reeks of smoke, and he starts to panic just a little bit. She gives him a playful tease, offering to pick out some sharp new clothes to replace his burnt outfit. The duo weaves through the crowded city streets and ducks into a trendy clothing boutique. The shopkeeper goes wild, raving about the hottest brand that's taking the world by storm. She insists that this is the absolute peak of fashion for every young adventurer. Jinta steps out in a fresh set of gear and nervously asks Liafa for her honest thoughts. Liafa scans him from head to toe, her face turning bright red as she admits he looks incredible. She hides a giggle behind her hand, just relieved that he finally stopped smelling like a burnt crisp. Jinta feels the heat rise to his cheeks, but he's secretly beaming from the compliment. He stands tall and proud, finally looking like a legendary hero ready for battle. Liafa can't tear her eyes away, her heart racing as she realizes just how handsome he's become. She's so overwhelmed with excitement that her tiny crown practically blasts off her head. Jintas rubs the back of his neck, totally flustered, while Liafa turns away with a bashful blush. A kind old lady beams at them, chuckling about how sweet it is to be young. But lurking in the shadows of a nearby window, a battle-scarred warrior watches their every move. He signals his gang of thugs, ordering them to lock their sights on the newcomers. Their eyes burn with pure greed as they spot the legendary blade hanging from Jinta's waist. The weapon's stats are absolutely insane, boasting a massive 4,000 HP and 3,000 MP boost. Genital reels at the blade's sheer destructive potential and its two devastating magic skills. Lifa confesses that she knew something was up when he managed to slay that massive behemoth. She drops a bombshell. This sword's power is 10 times stronger than it's actually supposed to be. As she grips the hilt, her own stats explode, shattering the limits of her status screen. She's horrified to realize her stats are a measly 10th of Jean's when he's gripping that weapon. She's left reeling, convinced that his absurd luck stat is behind this madness. Deep down, she knows luck shouldn't be able to warp equipment effects like this. The only explanation is that his limit-breaking luck has completely glitched the sword. Jean stands there in a total daze, struggling to process the sheer scale of this power. Lifa wears a smug expression as she declares the sword is clearly just a massive bug. She tosses it back to him, complaining that the blade's intense aura is making her feel sick. Suddenly, she switches gears and asks Jean what he wants to do with the rest of their day. Lifa starts fidgeting nervously, admitting there's a secret spot she's been wanting to go. They arrive at the flashy item gacha hall and are greeted by a high-energy, cheerful maid. Liafa is practically vibrating as she begs Jinta for just one shot at the gacha. She spins around and points a finger straight at the brand new prize board with a huge grin. Jinta asks if there's a specific prize she's eyeing, and she nods her head like crazy. He spots a literal house as the grand prize, and she insists that they absolutely need it. Jinta finally admits they can't keep crashing at the inn for the rest of their lives. But he warns her that pulling the top prize is going to be a total nightmare. She hits him with those massive puppy dog eyes, pleading for just one single spin. He finally gives in, and she lets out a high-pitched squeal the moment he pulls out the cash. Right as she's about to roll, Jinta stops her dead in her tracks with a sudden plan. He offers to share his legendary luck with her, but she completely gets the wrong idea. She scoffs at him, boasting that he's about to witness the true, overwhelming power of a goddess. Just 10 minutes later, she's collapsed on her knees, desperately begging for just one more chance. Jinta rips into her for breaking her promise after she swore 10 times that she'd only take one shot. Her grand prizes are revealed to be nothing more than a pathetic, steaming pile of literal trash. He hits the nail on the head, calling her out for being completely addicted to the thrill of the gacha. With a confident smirk, he steps up and declares that he's going to be the one to win that house. Lifa lets out a massive pout, clearly irritated by his arrogant attitude. He tries to calm her down, but she snaps at him, refusing to let go of her frustration. She's terrified that if he's the one who actually pulls the winning ticket for the house, he'll never let her hear the end of it, constantly rubbing it in that the house belongs to him and him alone. Jean is absolutely floored that she'd think he could ever be that heartless. He doubles down, swearing he'd never dream of being so cruel to her. Closing the distance, he makes a bold promise. They're going to live there together. That heavy vow lingers in the air, leaving both of them completely flustered. Suddenly, the gacha maid kills the vibe, teasingly asking if she should congratulate the happy couple. She instantly recognizes them as the duo behind that legendary rainbow crystal win. The maid can't help but poke fun at his absolutely insane beginner's luck. She hits the nail on the head, guessing their eyes are set on the lakeside house. Jean flashes a confident smirk, confirming she's exactly right. He demands just one shot at the prize, declaring that his goddess is dying to have it. The maid smirks, taunting him that his beginner's luck is about to run dry. Genital just shrugs it off, declaring he'll win this time through pure skill. The two of them lock eyes, sharing a grin that crackles with intense rivalry. From the sidelines, Lifa screams her head off, begging him to bring home that gold. The other maids start panicking, terrified that this guy might actually pull off another miracle. Suddenly, a lone, boring white capsule drops into the tray with a loud clack. The maid's jaw hits the floor as she gulps in pure, unadulterated shock. Genital stares down at the plain-looking prize, his heart sinking in total disappointment. He hangs his head and apologizes to Lifa, convinced that he's completely blown it. But Lifa shouts that it's not just yellow. It's a blinding, radiant orb of pure gold. He thrusts the glowing treasure into the air, demanding the maid confirm his victory. The maid is absolutely blinded by the holy radiance, her voice failing her completely. As they cheer for their second miracle, the maid's legs give out and she hits the floor in pure shock. With the deed to the house secured, they gear up to leave the chaotic city behind. Junichi's mind is spinning, still unable to process that they're actually settling down. Lifa shouts his name, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the road ahead. She beams with joy, announcing she's already tracked down a carriage for their trip. As the wheels spin, the driver can't help but comment on how insanely lucky they are. He reveals that these very planes were a total death trap just 24 hours ago. A monstrous, bloodthirsty behemoth used to haunt these lands, slaughtering anyone who dared to cross. Jinta asks if the coast is clear, and the driver gives him a big, confident nod. A smirk creeps across Jinta's face as he laughs at the pure irony of their situation. He turns to Lifa, ready to crack a joke about that massive behemoth. Lifa is doubled over, looking like she's about to lose her lunch from motion sickness. She lets out a miserable groan, complaining that this bumpy ride is absolutely killing her. Jinta tells her to toughen up because the journey has only just begun. Out of nowhere, the horses let out a blood-curdling scream of pure terror. The entire carriage slams to a violent, bone-jarring halt. Janetta and the driver peer through the dust, wondering what on earth just happened. A gang of armed thugs is standing right in the middle of the road, blocking their path. Genitalk keeps his cool and demands to know their business, but the leader just lets out a sinister laugh. The boss reveals they've been tracking him ever since that incident at the Gotcha Hall. But get this. He couldn't care less about some stupid house. He points a finger, signaling that his true prize is something far more valuable. He calls it out right then and there. That's the legendary hero's demon sword. Junichi is stunned that a lowly bandit actually recognized his blade. The leader laughs in his face, mocking him for being dumb enough to carry such a weapon in plain sight. He starts bragging about the massive mountain of gold he's going to make off that sword. Genital just stares back, completely unfazed by the bandit's pathetic threats. But while he's focused on the leader, a thug creeps up from the shadows and snatches Lifa. The brute eyes her like meat, sneering that she's decent but totally flat. The leader flashes a sly grin, saying she looks like a wild ride. He clamps his hand on her chin, savoring the fiery glare she shoots back. "I like a girl who fights tooth and nail," he growls. With a rough shove, he tosses her aside and zeroes in on Jinta again. "Hand over the key to the house," he demands, voice cold as steel. He boasts that the remote lakeside spot will be their perfect secret base. He assures Jinta they'll treat the girl like precious cargo. The bandit leader's armored boots stomp forward with a thunderous grunt. He muses aloud that grabbing just the legendary sword would be a massive missed opportunity. Jinta flashes a confident grin, flat out rejecting the deal and calling the whole gang a bunch of morons. The leader clicks his tongue in disgust, his face twisting into a hideous mask of pure rage. He commands his thugs to charge, mocking Jinta for having a total death wish. Lifa watches the chaos from the carriage, trembling as she desperately whispers Jinta's name. The leader just scoffs, barking at his men that there's absolutely nothing to fear from a single sword. He sneers that the blade is nothing but a dusty antique, worth more as a trophy than a weapon. Suddenly, a piercing metallic shriek echoes through the air as Jinta unsheathes the legendary levitine. He unleashes his hidden power, roaring that he'll protect his house and Lifa until his very last breath. The bandits freeze in their tracks, their eyes bulging as soul-crushing terror finally sets in. Lifa stares in total shock, her heart racing at Jinta's fierce and sudden vow to keep her safe. He detonates a massive shockwave, roaring that he won't give up a single thing to them. The very ground shatters and explodes under the weight of his overwhelming power. The bandits are launched into the air, tossed aside like broken rag dolls by the blast. A colossal trench is ripped into the earth, leaving the bandits broken and groaning in the dirt. The leader shakes with pure terror as he realizes Jinta just sliced through the world itself. Jinta wipes his brow, stunned that a casual swing could pack such insane destruction. He mocks the cowards, asking if they're still brave enough to try and take his home. Paralyzed with fear, the bandits scramble to their feet and sprint for their lives. They scream out desperate apologies while Jinta stands there, calmly watching them retreat. Jinta stares them down with a cold, calm gaze now that the threat has been neutralized. He spins toward Lifa and shouts that the nightmare is finally over. Lifa collapses on the dirt, sobbing uncontrollably after that terrifying encounter. He drops to one knee, asking if she's okay and softly whispering for her to dry those tears. She snaps back that she isn't crying, but her bright red face tells a completely different story. Lifa remembers his explosive promise that he'd never trade her life away for a place to live. She gazes at him with wide eyes as a massive blush burns across her cheeks. He reaches out a hand to pull her up, and she bashfully takes it. As they hit the road again, Lifa is still struggling with a nasty case of motion sickness. Jinta realizes he can't let her turn into a total weakling who gets pushed around. Lifa panics, screaming at him to explain exactly what he means by taking responsibility. She turns beet red, teasingly asking if he'd still be down even if she sold her own panties. Jean Tao plays it safe and drops the topic, admitting she's one sharp woman. Lifa's elegant shoe presses into the lush grass as she ventures deep into the heart of the forest. She's skeptical, wondering how on earth a house could be hidden this far into the wilderness. Out of nowhere, a stunning log cabin appears, perfectly tucked away right by the serene lake. Stepping inside, they find a massive rustic space featuring a gorgeous wooden staircase. The whole place feels incredibly cozy and solid. The ultimate dream home in the middle of nowhere. Leafa is totally blown away, shouting that this is exactly the kind of home she's always dreamed of. She's absolutely mesmerized, her eyes shimmering with nothing but pure, unadulterated joy. The forest air is crisp and refreshing, making this the most breathtaking spot imaginable. She leans out the window, absolutely mesmerized by the breathtaking view from their new home. But her peaceful moment is instantly shattered when she senses a chilling presence looming behind her. Jean-Ta smiles, watches her, thinking her genuine smile is a rare and beautiful sight to behold. Suddenly, a massive shadowy head towers outside the window with a single glowing eye staring her down. A system notification pops up, listing the property's features, including a literal dragon attached to the house. The beast unhinges its colossal maw, and its long, gross tongue reaches out an incredible distance. The tongue makes contact, leaving a thick, slimy trail right across her cheek. She desperately begs Jinta to help her as the dragon continues to lick her face. Jinta just steps outside, wondering what on earth she expects him to do about a dragon's affection. A status screen flashes, revealing the creature is a level 16 juvenile fire dragon. Leafa leans out the window and demands to know Janita's level, and she's stunned to hear he's already at 18. Her jaw hits the floor because hitting level 18 in just one day is absolutely unheard of. Jean-Tai's blade erupts into a roar of flames as he warns that he has no desire to harm a child. He makes it clear that he isn't about to just stand there and let himself be eaten. After a quick apology, he prepares to unleash a massive strike as a final warning. He shouts that if a fight is what it wants, he's going to show absolutely zero mercy. He slams a whip of pure fire against the earth, commanding the dragon to back off. Janetta stares up at the sky, completely baffled by the dragon's bizarre behavior. The dragon lets out a soft whimper, fluttering its wings in a strange, submissive pose. It gives a low rumble, but Janetta admits he doesn't have a clue how to speak dragon. The dragon's terrifying eyes suddenly soften, glowing with a newfound gentleness. From the second-floor balcony, Leafa screams down to Jinta. She mocks him, asking if he's already been defeated, and Jinta roars back in frustration. She points out the irony. He's the one who went running for cover on the second floor. Confused, she asks what happened, stunned by how silent the beast has become. She tells him to get down there and see this miracle with his own eyes. Leafa gasps in pure shock, covering her mouth as she witnesses something truly incredible. She explains that this specific pose is a sign of absolute total submission. By bowing its massive head to the dirt, the dragon is swearing its eternal loyalty. Leafa demands to know how he tamed the beast, but Jinta is just as clueless as she is. He realizes those flickering flames must have tricked the baby into thinking he was its mother. Jinta drops to a crouch, baffled that such a tiny dragon is wandering this wasteland all alone. Leafa stares at the pair, her eyes filled with wonder and intense curiosity. She turns to Jinta, asking what on earth they're supposed to do with their new scaly friend. They both agree. As long as this beast doesn't start biting, it can stick around for now. Leafa leans in and realizes that up close, this little monster is actually adorable. Her face lights up with warmth, looking at the creature like she just rescued a helpless kitten. Janatas proposes a plan. They'll protect the little guy until they can track down its real parents. Lefa beams with joy and wraps her arms around the dragon's snout, totally on board with the idea. Just like that, she officially welcomes Dragonshawn into their bizarre little family. With a roof over his head and a partner by his side, Jeantown's epic journey finally kicks into high gear. Standing tall before their new base, Jantire fires up his brand new squad for the road ahead. Jenatown bolts awake as the morning sun breaks and birds begin to chirp outside. The title screen flashes, revealing Lee Foss fast asleep right there in the bed next to him. He rolls over in a total daze, his mind racing as he wonders why on earth he's sleeping beside Leafa. He racks his brain, desperately trying to piece together every single detail from the night before. It all starts coming back, scrubbing the house top to bottom and trekking through the wild forest with a dragon. But as darkness fell, they both slammed into a seriously awkward realization. This gorgeous new home of theirs only came equipped with one single bed. He tried to be a total gentleman by offering to take the couch, but Lee Foss stopped him right in his tracks. She boldly points out that the bed is definitely big enough for two. Jean Tao's heart skips a beat as he imagines sharing the covers with her. Leafa turns a deep shade of crimson, finally realizing how suggestive she's being. His mind spirals into a wild fantasy of her begging him to take responsibility. He instantly snaps back to reality, horrified by his own dirty imagination. He steals a glance at Leafa, who's just standing there quietly by the bedside. But just as the tension hits its peak, the situation takes a sudden turn. Lifa simply knocks out and falls fast asleep, leaving Jinta alone with his thoughts. In the quiet morning light of their new home, Jinta watches her sleep peacefully. He lets out a long sigh, reflecting on the crazy, intimate path their lives have taken. Lifa finally starts to wake up, stirring under the sheets while Gentile keeps a close eye on her. She bolts upright, rubbing the sleep from her eyes and immediately demanding some food. Downstairs, a mountain of exotic pineapple-like fruits is waiting right on the table. Liafa's eyes sparkle with pure delight the second she spots her favorite treat, Pango! Genital reveals that their new companion, Haichan, was the one who brought these treats back. Lifa is left wondering who this Haichan is, just as the little dragon peeks out from around the corner. He explains that Haichan is their baby fire dragon, who lets out a massive, adorable yawn. As they dig into breakfast, Liafan muses on the dragon's simple name while Jinta maps out their day. Genitown drops the news. They've got to make a trip all the way back to the town of Hoenn. Lifa springs to her feet, her eyes shimmering with the wild energy of a high-stakes gambler. Jinta shuts her down instantly, reminding her they still have a massive guild mission to finish. It hits Lifa. They still haven't reported their epic victory over that terrifying behemoth. She realizes the trek back will take half a day on foot, and Jinta's soul basically leaves his body. Just as they gear up to leave, Haichan's ears perk up as he senses their departure. Jinta is stunned when the dragon offers them a ride, and the beast lets out a happy roar of confirmation. Jinta and Lifa are absolutely hyped at the thought of skipping that long, grueling walk. Lifa gives Haichan a quick thanks while Jinta scrambles onto its back, ready to blast off. With a roar of excitement, Jinta points straight toward their destination, the town of Hoenn. Haichan sprints off like a rocket, leaving Jinta screaming and wondering why they aren't actually flying. Lifa explains that Haichan is still just a baby and hasn't unlocked his flight skills quite yet. The town gates finally come into view, but the high-speed ride has Lifa's stomach doing backflips. Hoenn's colossal stone archway towers over them like a sleeping giant. Two armored guards are caught completely off guard as the ground shakes from their thunderous arrival. One guard stares at his partner in pure shock, while Jinta casually asks for permission to enter. Haichan's massive, shadowy silhouette looms large, its eyes burning with an eerie glow that pierces through the soldiers. Standing right in front of the monster, Jinta calmly asks the trembling guards if they can head inside. The guards are paralyzed with terror, one of them barely able to choke out that there's a monster right there. Jinta turns to Haichan and apologizes, explaining that the big guy has to stay outside the city walls for now. He tosses the beast a pango fruit as a reward for being a good boy, leaving the guards absolutely speechless. One guard gasps in total disbelief, asking if Jinta has actually managed to tame a legendary dragon. Genitok swears the dragon actually obeys him, leaving the guard absolutely stunned. The guard creeps forward, questioning if this little beast can even process human speech. He scoffs, refusing to believe a monster could ever be that smart. Haichan shuts him up instantly by blasting his hair into a hilarious smoking afro. Jinta gives the dragon a stern talking to, but the little troublemaker just responds with a giant, gooey lick. Once they're past the gates, Lifa drops some serious knowledge about why dragons are such a big deal. She warns Jinta that these creatures are elite-tier monsters that make normal threats look like jokes. Dragging a beast like that to the front gate was a total suicide mission, she scolds him. Then she teases him, joking that he just wanted to flex his amazing kid to the whole world. Jinta shuts down her rambling by pinching her cheek and demanding directions to their next stop. Li Fa points a finger down the bustling street, shouting that the guild is just ahead. Her eyes sparkle with pure joy as she mentions it's right past the legendary gacha shop. Jinta double-checks the spot, and she nods back with wild, giddy excitement. He shoots her a totally exhausted look, but she just tilts her head and innocently asks what's wrong. He finally caves, suggesting they might as well take a quick peek inside. They pull up right in front of the building to scan the massive prize board on display. Genitao takes one look and realizes the current prizes are honestly pretty pathetic. He shuts it down immediately, deciding there's absolutely no reason to play today. But his decision is instantly met with the sound of quiet, soul-crushing sobbing. He panics, thinking Li Fa is actually crying, and desperately offers to let her play. He realizes the sobbing is coming from a tiny elven girl hidden in a nearby alley. Genitile is stunned, questioning why a young child would even be in a place like this. Lifa knows they won't get any answers unless they just go over and talk to her. She offers a warm smile and asks the little elf, Elri, for her name. Lifan drops to her knees, gently asking the sobbing girl what's making her so sad. Through her tears, Ellery explains there's one prize she's been desperately dreaming of, but she gambled away every single coin and ended up with nothing but a pile of junk. Lifa comforts the heartbroken girl, feeling the pain of her devastatingly bad luck. Janta asks Elri which specific prize she was fighting so hard to win. She points a shaky finger at the board. The legendary SR-ranked bow, Gyoka Yoichi. He asks if she's winning it for a friend, but Elri's soft no carries a heavy weight. Lifa wonders if she's here with her father to reclaim his legendary bow. Elri's heart breaks as she reveals the terrifying truth. The behemoth slaughtered her father. Janta is frozen in shock, realizing this bow is a haunting relic of a past tragedy. A flashback reveals her father standing tall, facing the colossal beast with that very same bow in hand. The outcome was brutal, and a single word echoes the tragedy of his fall. Scavenged from the ruins of the battlefield, the bow somehow ended up as a prize in this gacha hall. Elri breaks down in tears, sobbing that she's finally found it after years of searching. With a radiant, confident smile, Lifa tells the grieving girl not to worry for another second. She boldly declares that her big brother Jinta is going to win that bow in a single shot. Jintel throws out a stern warning, telling him not to make promises he can't actually back up. Lefane and Ellery join forces, ruthlessly mocking him for his total lack of confidence. A fierce, hungry grin stretches across Jean Taz's face as he dives headfirst into the challenge. Back at the gacha hall, the maid greets a new customer at the counter with a polite smile. She immediately spots Ellery, realizing the young elf just couldn't stay away for another day. Lifa steps up to the plate, boldly declaring that they're here to walk away with the ultimate prize. She sets her sights on the legendary SR-ranked bow, Gyoka Yoichi, and she isn't leaving without it. Elri cheers wildly as Lifa swears she'll get absolute revenge for the humiliating losses she suffered yesterday. But the attempt is a total train wreck, leaving Lifa crushed under a mountain of worthless junk. She screams that the machine is rigged, absolutely refusing to believe her luck could be this pathetic. Genital tries to step up, but she shuts him down, shouting that she's far from finished. With tears blurring her vision, she desperately clutches her very last capsule. The final prize clatters out of the machine and rolls across the floor. She pops it open to find a 2,000 ren meal ticket, her first actual win of the day. Lifa and Elri explode with joy, tackling a totally confused Jinta in a massive group hug. Lifa declares it's time for a feast and drags Ellery away, leaving Jinta to handle the mission alone. Genital grumbles under his breath, annoyed that he's the only one left to finish the job. With bright, encouraging smiles, Lifa and Elri cheer him on to give it his absolute best. Genitag flashes a confident wink and a thumbs up, fully accepting his heroic duty. The two girls wave a final goodbye and head off to enjoy their hard-earned victory feast. Left all alone, Jean lets out a heavy sigh and marches toward the counter to finish the job. He freezes in his tracks when he realizes the gacha machine has grown to an absolutely massive size. He demands the standard machine, frantically asking the maid why this one is so freaking huge. The two maids trade a knowing look before one of them coldly confirms his suspicions. Jean's gut tells him something is wrong. This whole machine has to be rigged with total garbage. The maid explains that this insane setup was built specifically for one very special customer. Jean groans in pure agony as the horrifying realization hits. These twisted new rules are meant for him and him alone. Even with the impossible odds stacked against him, he agrees to play, leaving the maid absolutely stunned. The gacha hall maid trembles, nervously asking Jean if he's truly prepared to gamble it all. She leans in and whispers a terrifying secret. This machine is stuffed to the brim with worthless dummy capsules. Lifa warns him that winning is a pipe dream, but Jinta refuses to back down. He declares that he finally has a reason to fight that he absolutely cannot abandon. The camera pans to the massive, glowing entrance of the grand gacha hall. Elle is drowning in worry, but Lifa promises her that Jinta's luck is practically god tier. Suddenly, a violent metallic crashing sound from inside the building makes them both jump. Jinta finally steps out, and Elri rushes over, desperate to know if he pulled it off. He just stares back with a dazed, hollow look, like his brain has completely short-circuited. Back inside, the maid is a total wreck, sobbing that she single-handedly destroyed the entire shop. Lifa shakes him back to his senses, demanding to know if he actually won the bell. Jinta drops to one knee before Elri and presents the stunning, masterfully crafted weapon. He reaches out, gently handing the bow over to the tiny elf girl. Flashing a kind smile, he asks her if this is the one she's been looking for. Elri grasps the weapon, her fingers instantly recognizing the familiar grain of the wood. Tears flood her eyes as she confirms that this is definitely the right one. Overwhelmed with emotion, she whispers that this is her father's precious bow. Jinta looks at her warmly, telling the young elf how happy he is for her. Elri gazes up at Jinta and Lafa, truly seeing them as her new big brother and sister. Through a beaming, tear-streaked smile, she gives him a heartfelt thank you from the bottom of her soul. They wave farewell as Elri skips toward the town gates with pure joy in her heart. Jintao worries about her traveling solo, but Lifa assures him she'll be perfectly safe. Jinta's jaw drops when Lifa reveals the shocking truth. Elri is actually an elf! She explains that even the youngest elves are absolute powerhouses when it comes to magic. Jinta is blown away. But Liafa quickly reminds him that Haichan is still waiting for them. For a split second, the two of them strike a legendary, confident pose together. But the vibe is killed when Liafa furiously pinches Jinta's cheeks, dragging him toward the guild. They finally make it to the massive, bustling hub of the Adventurers Guild. The receptionist, Carla Milan, steps forward and presents Jinta with his official registration card. Jinta stares at the card in awe while Carla warns him to keep it safe at all costs. Then Carla turns her attention to Liafa, asking if she's ready to register too. But Liafa looks Jinta right in the eye and firmly declares that she won't be joining. She strikes a legendary pose, boldly declaring that she's a literal goddess. Carla just stares back with a stone-cold, unimpressed smirk that says it all. Carla completely ignores the theatrics and gets straight to work processing their quest report. She confirms they're actually here to report the total subjugation of the plane's behemoth. She assumes these two are just the representatives for a much larger group of adventurers. Jinta's pure confusion makes Carla freeze, giving him a look of total bewilderment. A voice from across the hall screams in disbelief that Jinta slaughtered the monster alone. Carla is absolutely stunned, shouting that this B-rank quest usually demands 40 warriors. Jinta casually slams the massive curved horn of the behemoth onto her desk as proof. Carla stares at the giant horn, her face turning pale as the impossible reality hits her. Jinta slams down the official appraisal certificate to prove he's the real deal. Carla's eyes widen as she spots Madame Rin's legendary signature, proving the document is 100% legit. She's completely stunned that one man alone managed to slay such a terrifying dragon. A tiny cat-like creature at Lifa's feet pipes up, demanding to know when they get their hands on the loot. While Lifa pets the little guy, Carla starts stammering, desperately trying to explain the complicated situation. She reveals that the massive reward actually comes from a high-ranking noble named Wakliev. Jinta and Lifa are caught off guard when they realize the guild isn't the one footing the bill. As soon as that name drops, a hyped-up adventurer lunges forward and grabs Lifa by the shoulders. The entire guild hall explodes into chaos as adventurers swarm Jinta, begging him to join their party. A gorgeous, barely dressed adventurer wastes no time pressing herself right up against Jinta's side. She and her friend urge him to ditch this wild crowd and escape with them. Jinta's face explodes into a deep blush, overwhelmed by their sudden, intense focus. The women tempt him with a private trip to a dungeon. Just the three of them. From the shadows, Lifa's eyes darken as she watches the whole scene unfold. Her tiny hand tightens into a shaky, fierce fist. She grabs Jean Taz's arm, demanding he follow her without a second thought. She claims she knows the secret location of Clan's home. Dragging him off, she snaps at him for grinning like a clueless fool. Completely clueless, Jinta nervously asks if she's upset, flashing a nervous smile. Lifa turns away, cheeks puffed out, stubbornly denying any bad mood. The other adventurers can only stare as they depart, feeling the heat of her justified rage. Even while soaring on Haichan's back, Jinta can tell that Lifa is still absolutely fuming. As they glide through the air, Jinta's eyes lock onto a tiny figure on the path far below. Haichan lets out a friendly, booming roar, instantly recognizing the little elf girl, Elri. Jinta realizes in a flash, it's the same sweet girl they helped out at the gotcha hall. He screams for Haichan to pull over as the dragon begins a reckless high-speed descent. The dragon's messy, ungraceful landing sends the terrified Elri tumbling onto the ground. Massive claws tear through the dirt as the dragon skids to a violent, dusty stop. Elri lies there in the dirt, her head spinning from the absolute chaos that just crashed down. Jinta starts apologizing frantically, but Elri's face lights up as she recognizes her new big brother and sister. Elri's jaw hits the floor when she realizes Jinta actually tamed a dragon this powerful. Seeing how rattled she is, Lifa pulls the trembling Elri into a warm, sisterly hug. Genital breaks the news that their next destination is the mysterious Lake Life. Elri's face beams with pure excitement as she offers to be their personal guide to the village. They finally emerge into a stunning, hidden sanctuary where the elven clan thrives in secret. Genitai can't believe his eyes as he sees just how many elves live in this massive community. Elri points out a grand estate with a bright red roof, the unmistakable home of the village chief. She announces she's got to run home immediately to show off her incredible new bow to her mom. But before she disappears, she stops and asks Jinta to lean down toward her for a moment. Lifa watches the whole thing from the shadows, her eyes narrowing with total suspicion. Elri leans in close to the dazed Genita, a playful smirk dancing on her lips. She softly whispers her gratitude for the return of her father's legendary bow. Suddenly, she plants a quick, sweet kiss right on his cheek. With a playful wink, she waves goodbye and skips off with a bounce in her step. Jintot touches his face, completely stunned by that sudden burst of affection. Lifa's eyes burn with jealousy as a dark aura explodes around her, declaring him guilty. Meanwhile, their dragon buddy Haichan is fast asleep in a quiet forest clearing. The group arrives at the chief's massive, majestic estate. A stunning elven woman greets them, introducing herself as Kuna, the daughter of Liev. She elegantly welcomes them inside, promising that her father will arrive any second. While Quina prepares the tea, Liafa is absolutely floored by her stunning beauty. Jinta silently agrees, though his eyes are definitely wandering toward her massive chest. Quina returns with effortless grace, pouring the tea and asking exactly how much milk they'd like. But when Jinta asks for extra milk, a jealous Lifa shuts him down with a sharp jab to the ribs. Quina politely asks if they're the brave adventurers who've arrived to deliver the report. Jinta looks her dead in the eye and confirms that they are indeed the ones. Both he and Lifa snap their heads up as a powerful, commanding figure enters the room. Wakeliev walks in with a bright, friendly smile, apologizing for the long delay. This wise and dignified elven elder carries himself with authority as he apologizes for the wait. He introduces himself as the village chief, the one and only Wakliev. Wake drops the bombshell that the guild has already filled him in on every single detail. He skips the small talk entirely, ready to dive straight into the matter of Jinta's massive reward. Wake calls out to his daughter Quina, who steps forward with perfect, quiet obedience. Lifa's heart races as she whispers, imagining the legendary treasure they're about to receive. Wake explains that taking down that behemoth was the one thing his clan desired above all else. So, for the legendary hero who finally made their impossible dream a reality, he's decided to hand over his most precious daughter, Quina, as the ultimate prize. Jinta and Lifa are completely paralyzed, their faces twisted in a twin mask of pure shock. Liafa stammers out a question in total disbelief, but Wake just calmly confirms the insane truth. Jinta is sweating bullets, his mind spinning as he struggles to make sense of this crazy situation. Wake beams with pride, declaring Kuna the perfect bride, raised specifically for a legendary adventurer. Quina chimes in, boasting that she's a master of the bow and a deadly user of wind magic. She drops into a deep bow, swearing her absolute loyalty and service to Jinta. The sheer insanity of the moment finally sinks in, and they both let out a massive scream of pure shock. A brutal flashback reveals the moment the clan was completely decimated by the behemoth's unstoppable rampage. Wake explains their total helplessness as they watch their kin, including Jan Yelri's father, get slaughtered. He recalls the desperate, solemn vow he made if a hero ever rose up to slay that monster. He promised his own daughter's hand in marriage, a deal that leaves Lifa absolutely disgusted. Wake begs for Jinta's overwhelming strength to ensure a tragedy like that never happens again. He points a finger straight at Jinta, shouting that he is the ultimate key to their entire future. He's already dreaming of a future family, imagining the unstoppable power of Jinta and Quina's combined genes. Just the thought of them together sends Lifa into a total meltdown, with steam literally blasting from her head. Genitop shouts a protest, arguing that this is way too fast and would definitely overwhelm Quina. Wait steps in to smooth things over, suggesting a trial engagement rather than jumping straight to a wedding. He offers a simpler solution. Quina should just join Jinta's party for now. Jinta sees a chance to escape the pressure and jumps at the deal with total excitement. Levi watches in horror as Jinta accepts, while Wakam officially entrusts his precious daughter to him. Later, as the newly formed group treks through the forest, Jinta calls out to Quina. Quina gleefully latches onto Jinta's arm, leaving a sulking Lifa absolutely fuming in the background. She gives him a sweet smile and reminds him to use her name, since she's officially his bride-to-be. Lifa scoffs in total disgust the second the word bride is even mentioned. She grumbles under her breath that Jinta is a total sucker for a pretty face. Quina shifts her gaze to Lifa, demanding to know what her deal is with Jinta. The question catches Lifa completely off guard, leaving her totally unable to define their relationship. Jinta jokes that Lifa is the mom of the group, and she shuts that idea down instantly. Quina turns up the heat, boldly offering to be Jinta's lover, or even just his plaything. Jinta realizes that somehow Liafa has become the one calling all the shots. He tells the girls to quit stalling and pick up the pace as they head out. Jinta turns to Lifa, asking if she's actually against Quina joining the squad. Turning bright red, Lifa stammers that she doesn't mind having a gorgeous big sister around. Her bizarre, stuttering response leaves Jinta and Quina completely baffled. Quina wonders what's next and suggests they hunt for a new quest in the city of Logro. The party marches forward with total confidence as the world fades into a loading screen. They step into a massive new city, staring in awe at a towering, majestic clock tower. Jinta realizes instantly that Logro is way bigger than anything they saw back in Hoenn. His stomach roars for food while he begs Lifa for directions to the nearest guild. Lifa and Kuina finally notice his hunger, remembering that pathetic fruit breakfast they had earlier. Kuina wants to hit a fish joint, but Liafa is dead set on a famous meat restaurant. Sparks fly as the two girls start bickering, dragging Janta in opposite directions. They demand a final decision, and he declares that he's absolutely craving meat. He tells Lifa to take the lead, catching her completely off guard. A massive grin spreads across her face as she promises to handle everything. She gloats that Jinta finally gets her, while Kuina watches with a smirk. Kuina lets out a quiet laugh at Lifa's adorable little victory. Once they hit the restaurant, Kuina starts pampering Jinta and shoving food his way. She asks if he likes it, leaving Lifa to rot in the corner like a total third wheel. Jinta notices the silence and asks Lifa why she's being so quiet while she eats. Kuina teases her, suggesting that Lifa is just waiting for Jinta to feed her too. Jinta asks if she's interested, saying he wouldn't mind, and Lifa starts shaking like a leaf. She jumps up with a face as red as a tomato, screaming that she'd never want that. Even though she's protesting, she shuts her eyes tight and takes a bite right off his fork. He asks her how it tastes while her face turns a deep, burning shade of red. She mumbles that she can't even taste it and insists she's better off eating alone. Jintan thinks she's miserable, but Queen Ah steps in and says that's not the case at all. Queen points out that Lifa is blushing like crazy, leaving Jintan completely baffled. She remarks that she's finally starting to figure out exactly how Lifa's mind works. With a playful wink, she promises Jintan that she and Lifa are going to get along just fine. Jintan realizes that Quina is actually incredibly sensitive to Lifa's true feelings. Lifa smugly declares that there are some things even she understands with absolute perfection. Jintan sighs, realizing that since elves age so slowly, Quina is probably way older than she looks. For a split second, a terrifying shadow flickers across Quina's smile, but Jinta is completely oblivious. Lifa feels a sudden chill down her spine, realizing she needs to tread very carefully around this girl. Over at the Logro Guild, the receptionist delivers the crushing news. Jinta is still stuck at G rank. He groans in frustration, absolutely sick of these mind-numbing herb-picking chores. Anaya, the receptionist, lays down the law. He needs 10 confirmed victories before he can even think about a promotion. Jinta begs for some real action, so she pulls out a high-stakes request from the Commerce Guild. Vicious goblins are ambushing merchant caravans, and Jinta's eyes light up at the chance for a real fight. But then he spots a major catch. The quest requires a party of at least 2 people. Without missing a beat, Quina volunteers to register as an adventurer just to watch his back. She boldly proclaims she'd do anything for Jinta, whether it's becoming his battle partner or even his bride. She gazes up at him with sparkling eyes, calling him Big Brother in the sweetest voice imaginable. Liafa's blood boils as she watches Quina put on this shameless, clingy act. Quina boldly suggests that she and Jinta ditch everyone else and tackle the quest as a duo. Lifa stands there completely paralyzed, her feet glued to the floor in total shock. Both Jinta and Quina turn their heads, staring at the silent, motionless goddess in confusion. Lifa finally snaps, slamming her fist down and screaming that she's becoming an adventurer too. Later, Quina asks if the quest is a go, and he confirms he signed up all 3 of them. He tells Lifa she didn't need to register, but she insists there's no way she's letting them go alone. Quina flashes a smug smirk, declaring that she's actually excited to have Lifa as a rival. Then she gets cold, bluntly asking Lifa if she can even fight, because this is definitely not a game. Janta asks the burning question, are her divine goddess powers still missing? And with a heavy heart, Lifa confirms the worst. Lifa hangs her head in total shame, absolutely crushed by how weak she's become. Jantak immediately tries to comfort her, promising that he and Kuina will be her shield and cover for her. Kuina can't help but smirk, teasing him for being way too soft and sweet on Lifa. Lifa tells the group to gear up, but Jintao insists he's already perfectly fine as he is. Kuina shoots him a wink, clarifying that she wasn't talking about the group's preparations at all. She was actually referring to Lifa's own preparations, leaving the goddess completely baffled. Quina declares that if they want to skyrocket their combat power, there's only one place left to go. The trio arrives at a massive building that Jintao instantly recognizes as a high-stakes item gacha hall. Quina points boldly at the prize board, announcing she's already locked onto her target. She claims the SR cleric staff is the perfect fit for the helpless Lifa, who reluctantly agrees to take it. Quina is blown away that such a top-tier item can be won for a measly 1,000 rin. Lifa is struck with disbelief, realizing Kuina is a sheltered girl who knows absolutely nothing about how the world works. When Kuina asks what she means, Liafa gets ready to drop some truth bombs about the brutal reality of gacha. Lifa screams that winning is never that simple, her voice dripping with the pain of 1,000 losses. Kuina fires back with a brutal question. Is it possible that Lifa's luck is just complete garbage? Genitao joins the roast, calling Lifa's luck total trash and earning himself a high-pitched, furious shriek. Quina proposes an all-out gotcha duel to see who can pull the ultimate prize, and Lifa accepts the bet. Both girls immediately swarm Genitao with their hands out, demanding he cough up the cash for their contest. Clutching a stack of bills, Quina swears she's going to turn that money into a massive mountain of treasure. Brimming with absolute confidence, Quina marches to the counter to conquer the gotcha. Suddenly she freezes, completely clueless on how to use the machine as the maid watches in total confusion. Lifa breaks down the simple rules, but Jinta is already paralyzed with pure anxiety over what's coming. Jinta returns with the drinks to find a totally crushed Quina and asks how her pulls went. Through a flood of tears, she shows off her pathetic loot, admitting the grand prize staff is nowhere to be found. Jinta rushes to comfort her, claiming she actually pulled some rare items, and her mood flips instantly. He shouts that her winnings are a masterpiece compared to the literal garbage Lifa usually gets. He spins toward Lifa, who silently hoists her prize with a look of pure dread on her face. Jinta leans in closer, sensing a dark, soul-crushing aura radiating from her winnings. It's a hideous, grotesque doll with a single eye glowing with pure, unadulterated evil. Tears streaming down her face, Lifa reveals a gruesome pile of crow parts and a terrifying cursed doll to Jinta. Quina warns them that the doll is pure evil, sending the whole group into a panicked scramble to stay away from it. After stuffing themselves with a massive feast, the party wanders through the vibrant streets of Logro. Seeing how late it's gotten, Lifa suggests they find an inn and save the Adventurers Guild for tomorrow. A wild side story unfolds, capturing every moment of the party's chaotic night in the city. Once they get to the room, Jinta apologizes, explaining that the inn only had one single room left for all of them. Lifa screams at him to keep his hands to himself, just as Quina sneakily crawls onto his bed. Quina puts on a sweet act and begs to share Jinta's bed, claiming her own is just way too cramped. Pure rage explodes as Lifa tackles Quina, furiously demanding they switch places immediately. Blushing like crazy, Lifa stammers that Quina and Jinta aren't even married yet. Kuna easily dominates Lifa, pinning the helpless goddess straight onto the bed. Quina's finger slowly glides across Lifa's collarbone in a dangerously playful tease. She leans in and whispers that since they aren't wed, they'll just have to find other ways to play. Quina flashes a wicked smirk and licks her lips, savoring every second of this power trip. Lifa is totally paralyzed by the heat, her eyes spinning in absolute disbelief. Her brain completely fries from the intensity, leaving her gasping and totally lost for words. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shatters the silence of the night. Jinta bolts out of that chaotic room, using the Dragon Haichan as his ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. He slams the door shut with a bang, desperate to get as far away from that madness as possible. Quina just chuckles, claiming it was all a prank, while Leafa literally collapses from the sheer shock. Over in Hoenn, the gotcha maids are buzzing about a terrifying local myth, the legendary gotcha fiend. They whisper about a black-haired youth who defies the odds, snatching the grand prize with every single pull. An urgent warning from headquarters had just arrived that morning, putting the entire staff on high alert. One maid scoffs, calling it nothing but a ghost story, just as Jean Tao suddenly walks through the door. With ice-cold composure, he holds out a coin and demands a single 1,000 rin pull. The maid's jaws hit the floor as a blinding light erupts, signaling yet another impossible grand prize win. The shop bell chimes one last time as he makes a swift and legendary exit. Genitao struts down the street with total confidence, having claimed the cleric's staff without breaking a sweat. As the shock fades, the maids finally face the truth. The gotcha fiend isn't just a legend, he's real. Genitop catches up with Lifa in Logro, where she's still being tormented by that creepy, cursed doll. She's spiraling into total despair because absolutely no one in the city is willing to touch that cursed doll. Suddenly, Genitop presents the staff, and Lifa is completely floored that he actually pulled off the win. It finally clicks. She can use the staff's purification skill to shatter the doll's curse once and for all. She towers over the doll right there in the street, ready to unleash her incredible new divine power. She shuts her eyes tight, calling upon the blinding sacred light of the heavens. She chants a desperate prayer to wash away the dark, hateful resentment of the dead. Activating recovery, she swallows the doll in a massive, brilliant pillar of holy radiance. The curse snaps, leaving only a normal toy behind as she lets out a triumphant victory cry. She collapses in pure relief, gently patting the harmless toy now resting on the ground. Genitai is thrilled, realizing that Lifa is finally ready to dominate as a top-tier support. He maps out their new party formation and is blown away by how perfectly balanced they are. Quina pulls out a set of mage robes she scored from the gacha and hands them over to Lifa. With a sly grin, she claims she'd absolutely love to rock the outfit herself. But the size is just way off. A savage, intentional dig at Lifa's flat chest. Genitop's face turns bright red as he instantly catches the brutal, unsubtle insult. Quina snaps at him for staring so hard, forcing him to stammer out a quick apology. Then she shocks him to his core by offering to let him stare as much as he wants later. Jinta calls out to see if Lafa is ready, and her voice rings out from around the corner. She's all changed! Lifa steps out in her new mage gear, looking absolutely stunning as the light sparkles around her. Genitox declares the outfit a flawless fit, and even Quina has to admit it looks amazing on her. Lifa starts to panic, worried that her skirt is way too short. She's totally embarrassed that her navel is exposed, thinking it's way too scandalous for a goddess. Blushing, she turns to Jinta and begs him for his dead-honest opinion. Jinta strokes his chin, locking in with deep focus as he weighs his answer. He flat-out tells her she looks adorable, sending her face into a bright red meltdown. Jinta confirms the gear is tough enough for battle, so it's finally time to move out. He shouts that the Jinta party is officially ready to kick off their epic quest. They touch down at the Leffen Plains, where Lefa immediately starts screaming for Haichan. Lifa starts spiraling when Haichan is a no-show, but Quina suddenly catches sight of something in the distance. Jinta scratches his head, joking that maybe their dragon just got bored and ditched them for home. Genitag grips his sword's hilt, realizing the situation has turned absolutely deadly. He spots Haichan in the distance, locked in a desperate solo struggle against a massive swarm of goblins. He rips his blade from its scabbard, swearing he won't let his comrade fight this battle alone. Haichan whips his tail with bone-crushing force, sending a goblin soaring through the air. Suddenly, a massive torrent of water erupts from its maw, scattering the goblin horde like leaves in the wind. The young dragon glares down with terrifying intensity at a goblin trembling in the dirt. It slams its foot down, kicking up a massive dust cloud that leaves the enemies dazed and vulnerable. Genitai watches in total awe as the dragon stands triumphant over the defeated goblin army. The entire party sprints toward their companion, desperate to see if the mighty dragon is still okay. Haichan lets out a roar of pure pride as Li Fan marvels at that overwhelming draconic strength. Quina's eyes light up as she spots the magic crystals left behind, while Lifa starts tallying up their loot. Genitop gives Haichan a huge shout-out for a job well done. He's itching for more action, wondering where the rest of those goblins are hiding so they can wrap this quest up. Suddenly, Genitai's ears perk up as a chaotic racket erupts from just over the hill. He looks out and sees a merchant caravan in total chaos, swarmed by a fresh wave of goblins. The merchants are trapped in a deadly circle, screaming in rage at the brutal ambush. A wicked grin spreads across a goblin's face as it prepares to tear into its defenseless prey. Two goblins launch themselves into the air, ready to bring their blades down on a helpless merchant. A merchant's voice cracks as he lets out a desperate, blood-curdling scream for help. He's hit the dirt, and now a ravenous horde of goblins is closing in for the kill. In a blinding flash, Genital slams down, his blade already carving through two enemies. The pure impact of his landing shatters the earth into a web of cracks. A group of nearby adventurers stands frozen, their jaws dropping at this sudden, violent intervention. One warrior can barely find his voice, stammering out his utter confusion. Quina thrusts her hand forward, launching a devastating volley of wind arrows. Lifa grips her staff tight, realizing with a jolt that she's way behind the action. The terrified merchant screams at the top of his lungs, pleading for the goblins to end their slaughter. He wails in despair as his priceless cargo is ripped to shreds right before his eyes. Lifa tightens her hold on her staff, determined to take down a goblin all on her own. "Hey!" she roars, commanding the beast to back away from the supplies. Letting out a fierce battle cry, she rockets into the sky. With pure focus burning in her eyes, she brings her staff crashing down. The goblin desperately hoists its shield, praying it can survive the hit. The impact is massive, sending the monster reeling back from the sheer power. Suddenly, a colossal shadow swallows the entire battlefield in darkness. "Haichan," Lifa whispers, standing tall beside her legendary dragon. The young dragon rumbles with a low, bone-chilling growl. Blazing energy swirls in its throat as it prepares to unleash a devastating blast. The goblins are paralyzed, their faces twisted in absolute soul-crushing horror. Genitov's heart sinks as he realizes this attack is way too destructive. "Haichan, stop right now!" he screams, lunging forward to break up the chaos. The dragon forces back its lethal flames, letting out a weak, heartbreaking cough. Leafall gasps in shock as she watches the surviving goblins scramble for their lives. One of the creatures points a trembling finger, shrieking that the rest are making a run for it. Quina throws her hand up, swearing that she won't let a single one of them escape. Jintas cuts her off, demanding to know if she's actually thought this through. He announces a new plan. They're tracking those monsters straight back to their hidden lair. Quina's face lights up, totally swooning over Jintas's badass leadership. Jintas rallies his squad, ready to lead the charge and hunt them down. The other adventurers are left frozen in place, their jaws hitting the floor in pure shock. Leafa steps into the eerie dark woods, realizing she's walked straight into a goblin's den. Quina gets the chills from the creepy atmosphere, while Jinta is blown away by the forest's massive size. They stumble upon the mangled wreckage of a merchant's cart, and it's a grim sight to behold. Quina suddenly screams a warning to Jinta. Danger is lurking right in front of them. Genital leaps back in a panic, completely caught off guard by a sudden ambush. A squad of elite goblins, decked out in heavy gear, emerges from the shadows. Genitop quickly realizes that these new enemies are way more powerful than the last ones. He commands Leafa to stay back and get her healing magic ready for the fight. He turns to Quina and tells her that her only job is to protect Leafa no matter what. He offers a quick apology to Haichan before giving him the green light to go absolutely berserk. With the strategy locked in, Jinta roars that the real battle begins now. He and Haichan dive headfirst into the sea of goblins, side by side. The entire clearing erupts into a violent storm of clashing steel and tearing claws. Leafall white-knuckles her staff, desperately trying to steady her racing heart. Her breath hitches as a stray goblin breaks through the line and lunges straight for her throat. She towers over the mangled goblin she just pulverized against a massive tree. With one more devastating swing, she launches a second goblin soaring through the air. Quina gives her a quick reality check for daydreaming in the middle of a literal deathmatch. A lethal arc of energy from Levitine's blade slices through the atmosphere with terrifying power. Jintok just shrugs, joking that this whole massacre is nothing but a walk in the park. Haichan lets out a low, menacing growl as he senses a terrifying new presence. Suddenly, a massive clawed hand crushes a tree trunk like it's made of paper. The monstrous goblin general stomps into the clearing, baring its fangs with a vicious snarl. Quina doesn't hesitate, blasting the beast with a devastating Skylance spell. But the general just scoffs, swatting the magical blast away with his massive axe. Quina freezes in shock, unable to believe her strongest magic was just brushed off. Jinta realizes they're in deep trouble. This thing is way tougher than any monster they've faced. Leafa's eyes widen as she spots the legendary magic-resistant dread armor covering its body. The group is left completely reeling by the overwhelming pressure of this monstrous guardian. Jinta tightens his grip on his blade, knowing that no matter what it is, it has to go down. Kuna screams that they need to pull back and regroup immediately. Quina is absolutely floored by the intense, burning determination in Jinta's eyes. Jinta stands like an unbreakable wall amidst a literal mountain of goblin corpses. He looks Kuna in the eye and vows to wipe this entire nest off the map today. His heroic resolve to protect the plains touches both girls to their very core. Janita stands tall with total confidence, while Hytron stays loyally by his side. Quina beams with a warm smile, her heart completely won over by his noble spirit. She throws her arms around Jinta, swearing to follow him until the very end. He's totally flustered by the sudden hug, but he's grateful for their unwavering loyalty. He firmly explains that he refuses to let him risk everything on the front lines. They pull him into a crushing hug, swearing to give everything they've got to support him. Leafod shouts that they're pushing forward to claim the next piece of the plains. Jinta agrees to keep moving, but he's sensing danger and tells everyone to stay sharp. He barks a warning, telling the crew that now is definitely not the time to relax. Deep within the heart of the woods, a colossal, terrifying shadow begins to stir. Meanwhile, Leaf is resting peacefully atop the back of a slumbering Haicon. She gently inspects the dragon, searching for any hidden wounds or injuries. Her staff erupts in a soft light as she pours her mana into Haicon to mend its wounds. Jintot is blown away, praising her for how insanely powerful her healing magic has become. He looks at Haicon with regret, apologizing for dragging the creature into this dangerous journey. The dragon responds by planting a massive slobbery lick right across his face. Liafa and Kuaina just stand there watching the chaos with completely soul-dead expressions. Drenched in dragon spit, a humiliated Janta desperately asks if anyone has a towel. The group pushes forward, venturing even deeper into the heart of the forest. Their boots crunch softly as they navigate through the thick, towering wild grass. They finally break through the trees into a massive clearing at the forest's absolute core. Quina senses it immediately. The air here is thick, heavy, and incredibly eerie. She grips her chest tight, overwhelmed by a wave of pure bone-chilling dread. Suddenly, the very ground beneath their feet begins to shake with violent force. The party braces for impact as the earth beneath them shatters and rips apart. Panic sets in as they frantically scan the area, desperate to find the source of the noise. Suddenly, a titan-sized foot stomps down, obliterating the very ground beneath them. It's massive! What the hell is that thing? Jintai screams in absolute terror. The Goblin King tightens his grip on the handle of his gargantuan stone club. Letting out a blood-curdling roar, he brings the club crashing down toward the earth. The impact triggers a violent shockwave, sending jagged rocks and debris exploding outward. Haichan is caught right in the center of that devastating, erupting blast. The poor young dragon is swatted like a fly, sent spiraling helplessly through the air. Genital watches in pure horror as the Goblin King ruthlessly knocks Haichan right out of the sky. That crushing blow splinters the earth, launching all their supplies high into the atmosphere. The massive Goblin King towers over Jinta while the girls scream Haichan's name in absolute terror. It hoists its jagged, heavy blade high, ready to deliver a lethal, bone-crushing strike. The monstrous steel screams through the air, crashing down with the weight of a mountain. Jinta reacts in a heartbeat, parrying the Titan's strike with the mighty sword Levitine. The Goblin King freezes in shock, his brutish mind failing to comprehend this impossible resistance. Lifa and Queen Astaire watch from the sidelines, their jaws dropping at Jinta's unbelievable power. Suddenly, a radiant magic circle erupts beneath his feet, pulsing with overwhelming energy. Bathed in the blinding light, Jinta glares with ice-cold eyes and spits a deadly curse at his enemy. Completely oblivious to his impending doom, the Goblin King bellows one last, savage roar. Jinta's face twists with pure fury as he remembers the pain inflicted on his precious Haichan. With a roar of pure rage, he lets loose a flood of pitch-black flames from his mythic blade. Lifa reels back from the sheer pressure of his mana, but Kuna is absolutely mesmerized by his overwhelming strength. Jintar suddenly freezes, realizing with a shock that he was actually trying to hold his power back. Even at a fraction of its potential, this dark flame is a literal hurricane of total annihilation. The explosion shreds the earth, sending jagged rocks flying as the shockwave blasts the entire party unconscious. Lifa stumbles to her feet in shock, staring at the charred remains of the goblins and wondering if he really held back. Quina is frantic with worry for Haichan, so Jinta immediately begins hunting for her hiding spot. He marches toward a crumbling shack on the edge of the woods and shouts into the shadows. He's certain she landed right here, but Lifan warns him that she's completely vanished from sight. Just as he starts to speak, a chilling, unknown voice cuts through the air, asking what he's searching for. A cheerful voice rings out, claiming she's right there, and Janta's brain completely short-circuits. He spins around only to find a naked, horned girl beaming at him with a massive, toothy grin. The whole party stands frozen like statues, desperate to know who this mysterious girl actually is. She lunges forward and tackles Jinta to the dirt, screaming, "Master!" with pure, unbridled joy. Liafa and Kuina watch with their jaws on the floor as the girl lets out a sound only a dragon would make. He stammers out, "Haichan, is that you?" just as a system text box pops into existence. Jinta connects the dots between that roar and his dragon friend, and the impossible truth finally hits him. Quina realizes the resemblance is way too close to be a coincidence. This girl looks exactly like their lost dragon. Janta begs for confirmation, but Quina snaps back that the girl has been telling them the truth the whole time. Jinta demands to know how this transformation is even possible, but Haichan is just as clueless as he is. She reveals the transformation happened the moment she was blasted into that pile of debris. We see her in dragon form, accidentally swallowing a mysterious liquid during the chaos. She woke up to find her body completely changed. A mystery that Janeta can't even begin to solve. Genitub turns bright red, realizing Haichan is a girl, earning him a sharp rebuke from Lifa. Lifa moves fast, wrapping a spare cloak around the still-naked Haichan. Haichan grumbles that the cloak is hard to move in, but Lifa promises to find her real clothes. Gentile examines a vial, and Quina confirms this is exactly what their friend must have swallowed. He explains that he discovered a whole box of these vials hidden right in the wreckage. Quina realizes this must be a legendary potion that turns monsters into humans. Lifa looks on with concern, asking Haichan if this sudden change is causing her any pain. Haichan frantically pats herself down, checking every inch of her body for any lingering injuries. With a cheeky grin, she lifts her cloak to give herself a much more thorough and private inspection. She beams with joy, declaring she's in peak condition while a flustered Li Fa sighs in pure relief. Kuna suggests they keep a close watch, while Leafa quickly shields Jinta's eyes from the scandalous sight. With the boss finally slain, Genitod decides it's time to head back and report their victory to the guild. They make it back to the thriving city of Logro, where the streets are absolutely teeming with life. Their first stop is a local shop to get their massive haul of monster loot appraised. The old appraiser stares at the mountain of magic crystals in total jaw-dropping shock. Genitai demands an official certificate for 20 crystals to finally wrap up their quest. The appraiser agrees, but warns them that processing 20 high-grade items is going to take some time. Haichan leans over the counter, her eyes glued to the old man's stunning quill pen. He catches her staring, and she can't help but admit that the bizarre tool is totally captivating. The old man laughs at her wonder, but his smile vanishes when he spots a dull stone among the gems. He tells Jinta that some piece of junk pebble somehow snuck into the pile of high-grade crystals. Jinta freezes, realizing that pebble is actually a trophy he snatched from the Goblin King's corpse. He spins around to tell Askley Faw, only to find that she and Quina have completely vanished. Right across the street, the girls are practically dragging Haichan into a nearby boutique. They shove a dress in her face, screaming that she absolutely has to try it on right now. Haichan stands there stunned, totally overwhelmed by their explosive energy. Pure chaos erupts as Haichan desperately screams for her master to save her. She steps out rocking a stunning gothic Lolita dress, and Lifa and Quina are totally obsessed. Next up, they deck her out in a sleek trench coat and beret, and the girls are absolutely loving it. For the grand finale, they force her into a goofy dragon onesie despite her desperate screams of protest. She stands there looking completely crushed, trapped in that ridiculous outfit like she's reached her breaking point. Totally drained, she runs to Jinta crying that Lifa and Quina are being absolute bullies. The girls are left speechless and horrified while Jinta desperately tries to clear up the misunderstanding. He comforts her, promising that they only did it because she's just so undeniably adorable. Jinta tells her she looks exactly like a princess, and her face lights up with pure, unadulterated joy. She throws her arms around him, begging for the dress, and he finally caves in despite the insane price tag. With their shopping spree finally over, the group heads back out to conquer the city streets. Jinta calls it. The only thing left to do is head straight back to the guild. Haichan practically glows, skipping along as she shows off her stylish new clothes. Her eyes sparkle with wonder as she takes in all the incredible sights this city has to offer. She admits that she's spent her whole life dreaming of seeing the world inside these walls. Jantel can't help but smile, his heart swelling just seeing her this happy. She reveals that in the past, she was always forced to wait alone outside the massive city gates. But now, adventuring with her master and the crew is the most fun she's ever had in her life. Quina realizes just how lonely Haichan really was, leaving Lifa feeling a sharp sting of guilt. But the emotional moment is instantly shattered by a thunderous growl coming from her stomach. Genituch lets out a chuckle, realizing she's completely starving after that wild transformation. He asks what she's craving, promising he'll get her absolutely anything her heart desires. Her eyes sparkle with pure joy as she ponders the menu before finally making her choice. With a massive grin, she cheerfully announces that she's dying to feast on some juicy goblins. The entire group instantly freezes, met with a wall of awkward, soul-crushing silence. Genitao jumps in immediately, firmly shutting down that insane idea before things get even weirder. As night falls, the exhausted party rolls into a local inn, desperate to find a place to sleep. Lifa looks totally embarrassed as she breaks the news. Once again, there's only one room left. Queen spots the disaster instantly. They've got 4 people and only 3 beds to go around. Suddenly, Queena's face brightens as a brilliant plan flashes through her mind to solve their problem. She boldly declares she's sharing a bed with Jinta, sending Lifa into an absolute spiral of rage. Lifa fires back that she's claiming Haichan for the night, but Quina screams that she's totally cheating. Lifa literally tries to drag the dragon girl away, declaring that Haichan belongs to her tonight. But Haichan shuts them both down, demanding to stay right by her master Jinta's side. Lefar actually tries to bribe the dragon with fruit, leaving the others absolutely horrified by her tactics. Janetta finally snaps from all the chaos and roars at them to just knock it off. He steps right into the middle of the confusion and announces he's got the ultimate solution. His big idea? He yanks all 3 of them into one massive, chaotic group hug. Jinta screams in pure frustration as he realizes he can't get a wink of sleep in this overcrowded bed. The merchant showers Janta with gratitude, her face absolutely glowing with pure, unbridled joy. She breaks into happy tears over how much easier her life has become, while Janta just blushes and tries to handle the praise. Quina rolls her eyes in pure disgust as Jintao turns into a blushing mess over another clingy girl. Liafa can't help but wonder, does Jinta actually have a secret weakness for these super needy women? Now that they've finally bagged the loot, Jinta turns to the group to decide their next big purchase. Lifa is practically vibrating with excitement, begging the team to blow it all on the item gacha. Jinta completely shuts down Lifa's gambling addiction and asks the receptionist for their next high-stakes mission. With a beaming grin, the receptionist slides over a special request that's tailor-made for their skills. It's a missing persons case, but the payout is absolutely insane. A staggering 1 million gold. Anaya reveals the dark truth. That massive bounty exists because this mystery has gone cold for months. Koina realizes the client must be beyond desperate to track down this lost researcher at any cost. The target is a man named Line, a brilliant researcher who was secretly developing a mysterious new medicine. 6 months ago, he vanished into thin air, dragging every scrap of his vital research with him. Jintis is convinced this guy is just a common thief, but Lifa is desperate for them to take the job. He's skeptical they can track down a ghost who's been missing for half a year under the Queen's orders. Suddenly, Haichan cuts in with a deadly serious look, demanding to know why Jintis is brushing off such a massive quest. Lifa's knuckles turn white as she fumes over the thought of someone committing such a low-life, despicable crime. With a massive 1 million rin reward on the line, Lifa screams that there's no way they're letting this chance slip away. Fueled by Lifa's fiery speech, the entire party stands tall at the counter, ready to take on the challenge. Janeta nods, declaring that theft is unforgivable, and officially signs them up for this high-stakes mission. He scans the portrait, surprised to see that the target looks like nothing more than a totally average guy. He grills the receptionist for more clues, but she's got absolutely nothing left to tell them. Genitile realizes they're stuck with just a name and a face, and he's losing all hope. Out of nowhere, Haichan recognizes the man as the very same person who used to live in their cabin. Jinta and Haichan stare at each other, their jaws dropping at this insane revelation. Their wagon rattles down the path as they charge ahead with this brand new lead. Kuina presses for the truth, and Haichan swears she's absolutely positive about the man's identity. A flashback reveals the kind researcher gifting Haichan her favorite pango fruits in the heart of the forest. Haichan drops another bomb. The man only moved out a few days before they arrived. Genitop puts it all together. This mysterious man was hiding in their cabin the entire time. When they ask where the researcher went, Haichan shakes her head, having no clue where he vanished. They decide to tear the cabin apart, desperate to find any clues the man might have left behind. The crew finally reaches their new base, a massive 2-story log cabin. Koina immediately claims the place for her and Jinta, making Lifa explode in protest. Little Haichan pipes up too, desperate to know if she's actually included in this new home. Jeantop gives her a gentle head pat, promising that this house belongs to every single one of them. Once they're inside, Lifa softly asks Haichan just how long she's been surviving in that forest. Haichan confesses the heartbreaking truth. She has zero memory of her past or even her own parents. Lifa realizes the poor girl is drifting off, totally exhausted from all the intense questioning. As Haichan falls fast asleep, Liafa can't help but think about how adorable her new friend is. Meanwhile, Genitai heads into the study, his eyes locked onto a massive bookshelf lining the wall. Kuna walks in and instantly recognizes the mysterious book Jinta just pulled from the shelf. He unveils his big discovery, the personal diary of a man named Line Friedman. Quina asks if he's found a lead, but Jinta is already completely hooked on every word. He confirms her suspicions, having just uncovered a game-changing clue buried in the text. Jinta calls out to Quina, his face turning pale as he prepares to share the book's dark secrets. After scanning the pages, he drops a total bombshell. They're abandoning the quest immediately. A stunned Kuina demands an explanation, unable to process why he'd just quit the mission. He explains the horror. The guild forced Line to develop a terrifyingly dangerous drug. Quina realizes this was a high-potency tranquilizer meant to force monsters into a human state. Lifa's blood runs cold as she connects the dots. The test subjects were a fire dragon and her egg. The gut-wrenching truth finally comes to light. Those subjects were Haichan and her mother all along. Quina's heart sinks as she gasps, terrified that Haichan was turned into a lab rat. Jinta sets the record straight. It was only her mother who endured the guild's twisted torture. The diary paints a gruesome picture of the agony the mother dragon suffered during those hellish tests. Line couldn't stomach the guild's depravity and felt a burning hatred for their heartless actions. He staged a daring escape from the facility, clutching the dragon egg as he ran for his life. Quena finally connects the dots. He's been hiding in this very house, raising Haichan all by himself. Jinta flips to the very end of the diary, scanning the most recent chilling entries. Once Line caught wind of the bounty, he vanished, desperate to keep the guild away from Haichan. Genital reveals that this final entry was penned just 2 short weeks ago. He knows that finishing this quest means betraying Line to those heartless monsters. He declares that there is no way he'll betray the man who saved Haichan's life. Quina fully supports his choice, though Jinta apologizes for letting his emotions drive his actions. Her face glows with admiration as she tells Jinta she feels the exact same way. Jinta calmly whispers Quina's name as he gazes into the distance. Suddenly, a deafening explosion shakes the entire cabin, shocking them both to the core. Quina panics, screaming to know what's going on as the house continues to tremble. They race downstairs, with Quina fearing the guild has finally come to take Haichan back. Jinta hits the landing, desperately shouting for Lifa and Haichan in a total frenzy. He finds a stunned Lifa perched right on top of Haichan in her powerful dragon form. The wall and the railing have been completely obliterated and smashed to pieces. Jinta and Quina stand frozen on the landing, eyes wide with shock at the bizarre scene unfolding outside. A flustered Lifa rushes forward, desperately trying to explain the madness they just witnessed. Quina pieces it together. Li Fa's explosive fury must have forced Haichan back into her dragon form. Exhaling a weary breath, Jean Taz finally wraps his head around this chaotic mess. Stepping outside, Genitao remains cool as ice as he triggers his legendary unique skill. A pitch-black vortex tears open the ground. His bottomless item box is ready for action. With a simple wave of his hand, he hoists the colossal dragon and tosses her into the pocket dimension. Jean Tom is absolutely floored. His item box truly can hold anything in existence. Scanning the diary, Li Fa's blood runs cold as she remembers the Alda Commerce Guild's disgusting reputation. She confirms they are pure evil, knee-deep in illegal weapons, slavery, and monster trafficking. She tosses her old quest aside, but a brand new fire is burning in her soul. The second she mentions Haichan's mother, the little dragon looks up with pure curiosity. That old diary spoke of a mysterious cage hidden on the jagged peaks of Nail Mountain. Li Fa declares her new mission. She's going to save the mother dragon and reunite this family. She turns to Janta, her eyes pleading with a desperate, heartfelt intensity. She's left standing in the dust as Janta and the others start trekking away. He shouts back, asking where else they'd be headed if not straight for Nail Mountain. With a confident smirk, Jinta announces their new quest to rescue Haichan's mom. He asks if she's really going to stay behind, leaving it up to her to catch up. Quina is absolutely stunned, watching Janta take charge with such decisive leadership. Janta looks at a blushing Lifa and breaks the news. They need a ride, and they need it now. He coolly explains that Haichan is going to be their ticket straight to Nail Mountain. Without a moment's hesitation, he tosses the screaming goddess right into the swirling vortex of his item box. From deep within the void, Lifo shrieks at him to try being a little more gentle. Her hand gives one final pathetic thumbs up before the darkness swallows her completely. The portal snaps shut with a bang, leaving Jinta and Quina primed for the journey ahead. Genitao checks his inventory only to find a mortified Lifos regretting her entire existence. He declares with total conviction that for everyone's sake, they have to keep moving. But then, a sudden realization hits him like a ton of bricks, and it's not good. He looks into his item box and watches in horror as his pango fruits start vanishing into thin air. He bellows into the portal, accusing the stowaway of devouring their precious supplies. The inventory numbers tank, proving beyond a doubt that Lifa is the hungry culprit. Genitop warns they'll starve at this rate, but Kuina is just thrilled to keep moving. They've covered massive ground, yet their goal is still nowhere in sight. As they soar on Haichan, Jantai asks Kuna if she recognizes this mysterious land. He's kicking himself for stashing away Lifa, the only person who actually knows the way. Suddenly, Queena's eyes light up as she points toward a familiar mountain peak. A massive, jagged mountain range looms over the distant horizon. They set up camp to catch some sleep before tackling that brutal climb under the cover of night. Genitov cracks open the item box, fully expecting the pango to have vanished. He lunges into the void, blindly reaching out to drag Lifa back to safety. In a total panic, Lifa screams for him to watch exactly where he's grabbing. With one massive tug, he accidentally rips her entire skirt clean off. Lifa crashes out of the portal, collapsing onto the ground in a humiliated heap. Jinta stands there frozen, staring down as the sheer awkwardness of the moment hits him. Completely mortified and exposed, Lifa shrieks, demanding to know why he'd do such a thing. Quina shoots him a devious smirk, teasing that Jinta must actually enjoy being a total creep. He desperately tries to explain, swearing it was an accident and he never meant to snatch her clothes. As night falls, a warm campfire blazes, cutting through the encroaching darkness. Huddled by the flames, Lifa asks the big question, is Haichan's mother actually here? Jinta is absolutely certain. She's definitely lurking somewhere on this massive peak. Li Fog agrees, noting that Haichan's intense behavior gives it all away. The young dragon's eyes are locked onto the summit, refusing to look away for even a second. Quina explains that Haichan can literally feel her mother's powerful aura radiating nearby. Genital gazes at the moonlit mountain, swearing a solemn oath to reunite them. Deep down, he makes a silent vow to bring this mother and child back together at any cost. Meanwhile, at the Alda Commerce Guild's mountain base, a high-stakes meeting is underway. The Guildmaster, demands to know if they've finally tracked down the Line Freedman. It's come to this. They have no choice but to stake everything on an experimental humanizing potion. A subordinate reports that they've already begun testing a prototype on a captured goblin. Atch smirks, realizing even a broken beast can rake in a massive profit. Sure, the monster came out weaker, but it's still worth a fortune on the market. He spins toward a mysterious cloaked figure and commands Lord Melds to begin the next phase. The scene shifts to the looming dark shadow of the massive mountain. Our heroes start their grueling climb up the jagged, treacherous mountain trail. Janatop struggles with the brutal shortcut while EFAS is already gasping for air. She collapses against his back and he's suddenly very distracted by her pressing against him. Lifa completely misreads the situation and starts screaming about the dangerous cliffs in a jealous rage. Suddenly, Jinta locks eyes on their target, a cold iron cage holding Haichan's mother captive. They creep toward the enemy camp, stunned to find the entire place completely unguarded. The squad marches toward a colossal iron gate carved right into the mountain. They huddle together, frozen by the chilling sight waiting for them. Haichan lets out a low, trembling growl. She knows it's her mother. Deep behind those bars, the massive, shackled dragon starts to wake up. Haichan lets out a desperate cry, begging for her mother to hear her. The mother dragon answers with a gut-wrenching, agonizing roar. Jean Tao watches this soul-crushing reunion, her face hardening with resolve. She glances at her stats, seeing her HP in the red and her body riddled with debuffs. Out of nowhere, the mother dragon's eyes ignite with a terrifying, vengeful light. Jinta rips his blade from its sheath, screaming for everyone to get the hell back. A colossal wave of dragonfire crashes right into those iron bars. The beast unhinges its jaws and spits out a devastating river of flames. Haichan stands frozen in terror as Jinta gears up for a desperate move. He lets out a curse, seeing exactly what she's planning and readying his counter-strike. That massive blast of dragonfire detonates against the unyielding gate with a roar. Lifa and Queen Ash throw their arms up to protect themselves from the searing heat. Janetta lets his dark flames rip, slamming directly into the dragon's fire. Haichan can't believe his eyes as these two insane powers collide in mid-air. The rival energies clash, triggering an explosion so loud it shakes the very earth. Genitop gasps for air, relieved that the two attacks completely neutralized each other. Quina and Lifa scream his name as they sprint toward him. Lifa panics, demanding answers while staring at the dragon's horrific wounds. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in Jinta's head. Lifa's purification magic is the key. Lifa's jaw drops, absolutely stunned by such a reckless and deadly idea. But before they can act, Hatch and his goons storm onto the scene. One of the thugs roars in fury, demanding to know what the hell they're up to. Quina marches forward, ready to defend their heroic mission. She grabs onto Jinta, boldly proclaiming that they're a duo fighting for justice. Ak and his crew finally realize these guys are actually trying to rescue the dragon. Suddenly, one lackey points a finger, recognizing Jinta as the infamous gotcha delinquent. Hatch gets a chilling warning. His opponent is a lethal master of the magic sword. A bandit trembles as he recalls the day Jinta nearly wiped out his entire squad in Hoenn. Pure rage boils over as Atch barks a command that instantly silences his panicking crew. He screams for his men to throw open the fire dragon's cage this very second. Atch flashes a wicked, sadistic grin, telling his men there's absolutely nothing to fear. That's when he reveals their ultimate trump card. The legendary monster tamer, Lord Melts. Jinta and Lifa are paralyzed with horror, realizing the villains plan to enslave Haichan's mother. The massive mother dragon looms upward, revealing her true, terrifying scale. The entire group stands frozen, dwarfed by the shadow of this colossal, intimidating beast. Janetta is absolutely awestruck, staring up at the sheer, overwhelming power of a fully grown dragon. That mother dragon locks her gaze on them, her single eye burning with pure fury. Atch and his men are shaking like leaves, paralyzed by a soul-crushing terror. Ak finally finds his voice and screams for Lord Melds to strike. Melds channels his dark power, desperate to force this fire-breather into submission. They roar out a chant, unleashing a surge of crackling energy to enslave the beast. The mother dragon snaps, retaliating with a devastating blast of white-hot flames. Melds is swallowed by the inferno as his men scream out in absolute horror. Jinta and Quina are frozen, watching this total nightmare unfold in shock. The burning tamer staggers back, losing his balance right on the edge of the cliff. Melds goes crashing down the jagged rocks, nothing more than a tumbling ball of fire. The body crashes headfirst into a puddle, instantly snuffing out the roaring flames. Jantok creeps forward with bated breath, desperately calling out to see if Lord Melds is still alive. The hood slides back, revealing the wide-eyed, trembling face of a young girl. Jinta and Haichan are paralyzed, their minds reeling from the absolute shock. She scrambles to her feet in a panic, spotting a desperate opening to escape. She bolts away with godlike speed, leaving Jinta standing there in total disbelief. Atch and his squad are left completely exposed to the dragon's explosive rage. The guildmaster turns tail and runs for his life, screaming for Melds to wait up. Lafas stares at the scorched earth, trying to make sense of the absolute chaos. Jinta's gaze sharpens with lethal intent. He knows the real war is just beginning. Jinta snatches Lifa up and clears the massive gaping chasm in a single desperate leap. While clutching her tight, he shouts to ask if her purification magic can reach far enough to save them. The mother dragon looms over them, letting out a deafening roar that screams, "Stay back!" To Jinta's absolute horror, Liafa reveals her magic only works if she's practically touching the target. Terror washes over her as she realizes she's a sitting duck against this monstrous beast. Little Haichan watches her mother's rampage, her eyes filled with pure, heartbreaking dread. Jinta barks an order at Haichan to get Lifa and Quina the hell out of there. Quina's face pales as she questions his insane plan, terrified that he's walking into a death trap. With nerves of steel, he declares his mission. He's going to stop this dragon's rage, no matter what. Haichan whisks the girls away to safety, leaving Jinta all by himself to face the dragon's absolute fury. Lifa screams his name, her face twisted in pure terror for his life. He barely deflects a bone-crushing swipe from the massive mother dragon. He grits his teeth, fighting with every ounce of strength to hold back that insane power. A brutal tail whip slams into Jinta, sending him skidding across the shattered earth. The dragon lets out a roar of pure victory, asserting her absolute dominance over the battlefield. Genital realizes his strikes are like toothpicks against the impenetrable scales of an adult fire dragon. Suddenly, his instincts scream. He looks up, paralyzed by a new, terrifying threat. That giant tail swings again, but this time it's aiming straight for the cliffside. His heart stops as he realizes the dragon's true, horrifying target. Haichan spins around, completely blindsided by the sudden incoming disaster. That massive tail obliterates the cliffside as Jintar realizes they were the targets from the very start. Haichan barely escapes the crushing strike, soaring high above the chaos. He screams Haichan's name, his voice trembling with pure shock and desperate relief. Lifa and Quina grip the dragon for dear life, terror written all over their faces. Look at that. The entire cliff where they just stood has been reduced to rubble. Thick dust and jagged debris explode into the air from the sheer power of that impact. Haichan cuts through the sky, carrying her friends far away from the danger. Genital stares at them in total disbelief, his entire body shaking with a storm of emotions. Lifa screams in pure awe, realizing Haichan is actually soaring through the clouds. The little guy can't believe his eyes, wondering exactly when she mastered the art of flight. Her status screen flashes. She's officially hit level 27 and unlocked the power of flight. They rocket into the clouds, ready to dominate the battlefield from above. It's clear now. That brutal goblin massacre pushed her stats through the roof. Haichan slams onto the jagged earth, braced and ready for the next strike. The girls stare in total shock as Haichan takes command of the open skies. Quina breathes a sigh of relief, thinking they've finally escaped the danger zone. But Haichan pulls a sharp U-turn, diving straight back into the fray to save Jinta. Jinta beams with pride, shouting out to his fearless and loyal dragon partner. He sprints across the wasteland, dust swirling as he rushes to meet her. He vaults onto her back, calling on her to lend him every ounce of her strength. He vows they'll save her mother together, and she answers with a bone-shaking roar of agreement. The duo rockets into the sky, pouring every ounce of their strength into one massive combined strike. Their fused power transforms into a screaming torrent of dark flames, surging straight for the mother dragon. The mother dragon strikes back instantly, exhaling a monstrous wave of incinerating dragon fire. Her eyes burn with pure, unadulterated fury as she refuses to give an inch of ground. The two forces collide in a blinding explosion, completely neutralizing each other in a flash of light. Janatop steadies a dazed Haichan, his heart sinking as he realizes their ultimate move did absolutely nothing. She isn't finished yet, unhinging her massive jaws to charge up an even deadlier blast of destruction. Jantar's blood runs cold as he realizes his fatal mistake just as the next nuke is launched. He finally sees the terrifying truth. The gap in their power is like a helpless child facing a seasoned warrior. A light bulb goes off as a brilliant new strategy hits him. A stray fireball rockets toward the girls and Jantar curses his deadly mistake. Quina stays dead calm, shielding a terrified Lifa with her own body. She screams out her wind wall spell, conjuring a massive vortex of protective air. They're sitting ducks. At this range, there's no way to dodge that blast. The magical shield holds its ground, deflecting the explosion away at the last second. Quina is literally shaking from the strain as Janta battles this absolute monster. Janta bellows from above, desperate to know if the girls are still standing. Quina shouts back, telling him to quit worrying and go save Haichan's mother. He gives a fierce, determined nod, his resolve turning into pure steel. The sky erupts into chaos as Jinta and Haichan weave through a lethal rain of fireballs. Jinta grits his teeth, realizing his dark flames are barely even scratching the monster's hide. He's trapped in midair, unable to find the leverage he needs to land a killing blow. He's desperate for a miracle, any tiny opening that could flip the script on this fight. Haichan glances back at him, her face pale as exhaustion finally starts to take its toll. Her eyes are filled with doubt, silently asking if she's even strong enough to help him. Down on the ground, the girls watch in horror as Haichan's movements become sluggish and heavy. Lafar's heart sinks as she realizes there's no way they can dodge another direct hit. Jinta screams for her to stay strong and she pushes through the pain with a defiant roar. But it's too late. The mother dragon is closing in for a devastating point-blank execution. She winds up her assault while Jinta and Haichan brace for the impact. He bellows for them to strike now, but deep down he knows they're just too slow. She sees right through his desperate gamble to close the gap and hit her first. Quina knows for a fact that they don't have the speed to pull this off. The mother dragon finally unleashes her ultimate weapon, a terrifying blast of dragon breath. A massive fiery explosion erupts, swallowing Haichan and Jinta whole. Lifa and Quina scream out in pure agony, their eyes wide with absolute terror. The mother dragon glares down at the carnage, sensing that something isn't right. As the smoke dissipates, Haichan is seen falling, but Jinta has completely vanished. The young dragon looks defeated, her wings scorched and her body battered to a pulp. Jinta stands right on her head, giving a chilling warning that things are about to get painful. Her eyes widen as they reflect Jinta, looming over her like a shadow of doom. Flashing a cocky grin, he tells the massive beast to brace herself for the impact. He slams the hilt of his blade down with bone-shattering force right onto her weak spot. He looks at the dazed dragon and jokes that it was nothing more than a little tough love. The gargantuan dragon loses her grip on the sky and slams into the mountain with a deafening crash. She's left buried in the debris, groaning in total shock as stars spin around her head. Quina presses her hands together in pure relief, whispering that he actually pulled it off. Leifa is relieved, but her heart aches with worry for the poor, battered Haichan. Haichan soars through the air with joy while Jinta drifts down behind her, completely unscathed. The young dragon lets out a weary but triumphant roar, knowing her mission is complete. Jinta breaks down the strategy, revealing that Haichan's fireproof scales kept them safe from the blast. He explains the explosion was just a smokescreen to get in close, leaving Quina totally speechless. He showers Haichan with gratitude, and she responds with a happy, energetic growl. Lifa thrusts her staff high, announcing to everyone that it's finally her turn to step up. She prepares to unleash her ultimate purification and healing magic on the battlefield. Suddenly, the earth quakes violently as a massive landslide begins to swallow everything. As the ground shatters beneath them, Lifa cries out in utter confusion. She panics and screams for them to run, but Quina desperately asks where they could possibly go. Lifa shrieks in horror as Quina realizes their own chaotic battle triggered this mountain-sized disaster. Genitov stays chillingly calm, warning them that running now means getting buried alive. Lifa suggests hiding in the item box, but Jinta shuts that idea down instantly. She's losing it, screaming at Jinta to find a way for them to survive this. With total confidence, he promises to blast the entire landslide into dust. Quina can't believe her ears, but Jinta just tells her to back off and watch. Violent dark energy begins to explode around the blade of Levitine. Jinta stands firm against the falling mountain, channeling a massive wave of power. He pushes himself to the absolute brink, knowing a weak strike is useless. His face hardens with pure resolve as he calls for every drop of strength he has. The raw, crackling power of the sword burns brightly in his focused eyes. He freezes in his tracks, his mind racing as a mysterious voice echoes through his head. Suddenly the blade speaks, claiming to be the ultimate master of total annihilation. Gene Todd is fed up, barking at the ancient voice to shut its mouth because he's just not in the mood. He slams his foot down with pure defiance, obliterating the very earth beneath him. Enveloped by a glowing magic circle, he bellows at the sword to stay silent. He rips his blade through the air, unleashing the raw, chaotic fury of the dark flames. A massive tide of pure destruction erupts from the legendary steel. Letting out one last primal scream, he pours every ounce of his soul into the strike. The impact is insane, vaporizing the entire landslide in a blinding, hellish explosion. Drained and panting, he stands before his comrades who can only stare in absolute shock. That devastating shockwave ripples outward, completely vaporizing the mountain into nothingness. As the dust settles, he's left standing solitary in the middle of a colossal, smoldering crater. Jinta flashes a weary, sheepish grin while a stunned Li Fa can only whisper his name in disbelief. Li Fa snaps at him, complaining that he didn't just stop the landslide, he blew up the whole damn mountain.